right, so it is a little after 7 PM on January 16, 2019. I'm calling the Board of Health meeting to order, and ordinarily, I would announce any items to be added as not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. We don't have any. Does anyone have anything that they feel needs to be added this evening? Excellent, okay. So we have a couple of appointments and a lot of administrative business. So we will start. Let's see. Well, we could do the update on the Personnel Board meeting. That one's pretty easy. That was canceled for lack of a quorum, so we didn't get to go and get resolved the outstanding issue of we just need to see exactly when it was passed and then know about back payments, perhaps, to our clerk change to administrative assistant, and we wanted to ask for the update in hours and go over whatever job description was provided to the Personnel Board by the town administrator, because we haven't seen it and we have our own.
Each of you, in case that comes up.
And then, right, so Ellen's just giving us something on the financial impact of the change, which is not particularly large, really, in general. So if we get the increase in pay and the increase in hours for the administrative assistant, or the change in job duty from clerk to administrative assistant, or classification, and then
Well, this would just
added
be,
4 hours a week.
this doesn't include the added 4 hours. This is just for this fiscal year.
I'm looking at, oh, I see.
So
Yep, sorry.
for next fiscal year, it would be higher.
Okay.
Because there'd be additional hours as well.
Okay, so for this past year, be another 1,366, approximately.
$25.95, actually,
Oh, and 25.
to carry it through to the end of this fiscal year.
Oh, this is to date, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, any questions on that? Okay. I had general chemical update for a couple of reasons. One, I was speaking with folks from other towns who have been involved on this issue, and Framingham is working on different aspects of general chemical at the moment, future use of the property, not as much on groundwater quality. There hasn't been a lot going on within DEP that they've seen, and I think we may need to be the squeaky wheel to keep things moving on that with DEP, or see what's up. So not that we have a lot of control over it,
Yeah.
but so that it's not forgotten that this is important to our groundwater quality. And also, the office got a call from someone planning to move in who was concerned about were they in the path of this, because they are on the side of, or
Course
would
Brook.
be on the side of town near there. So,
So if we have no
Isn't anything-
jurisdiction over the project, who has jurisdiction over the abutters private?
Yeah, no, I mean,
Are we going to talk about that some other time?
yeah, I mean, we have no control over what's going on in the project, so we can provide our input, but like, as far as what's happening at General Chemical, the only thing new that was done was that 4 wells were installed in close proximity to the source area that's scheduled for treatment to further refine exactly where they should be applying the treatment, but things are moving about as slowly as I would have anticipated they would move, and,
Right.
so that's that. Now, if someone is purchasing a property, they, of course, typically do sample the well before
yeah,
they move in.
I recommended that they do that. I didn't offer that the town,
No, I
other
mean-
than we're trying to keep up with it.
Yeah.
What's gone on in the past,
Mm-hmm.
where to find data and information, who within the state is working on that, and Framingham Library being a depository for a lot of the reports, but focusing on the more recent reports, that kind of thing. But still, it's an issue because it's an unusual one to have to think about, and I think we should somehow keep up to date on it, and
Well, I have no problem keeping up
So-
to date on it because everything's put onto the ED website, so I even checked it when I saw that it was on the agenda, because it wasn't before. I did check it, and there's nothing, no new
Right, we
data to
haven't
report.
received any reports, so I knew that
Right,
there
and
was
I mean,
nothing out.
but I mean, I have no problem sort of checking it, the day before a meeting to see if there's any new data. I'll download it and review it and, can let Ellen know, or to add it to the agenda.
Yep.
So I'm fine
Okay.
doing that, but.
That'd be good.
I mean, anytime that there is a meeting where they're supposed to be convening stakeholders, they allegedly contact the town, so
Mm-hmm.
I should know about those through Ellen or the select
Right.
board or David, like in the past,
And I could
right?
believe at some point we
Yeah.
may want to invite them again, and we may want to talk about using some monies that we may or may not have in the budget for,
Review.
although I always have mixed feelings about testing private wells because of the liability that you might force onto somebody
Right.
by doing that, but whether there'd be any testing that we might do, so.
Yeah, we need to be careful about that, because, ideally, we would, if we start seeing a pattern that it appears that for some reason the plume has changed, and now we have concerns that it might be impacting, my first preference would absolutely be to get general chemical, DEP to sample
Yep.
nearby private
Yeah.
wells, not put the burden on.
Homeowner.
As-
I don't know whether this is the perfect time to, as a general, I think that I'm interested sort of as a general concept, whether we as a board have a sort of plan of how we're going to handle each, at this moment, it's always done case by case, but now there are multiple cases where we have either a region, like the general chemical, that contamination or whatever, plume, which is not under our jurisdiction, but could potentially have an influence on private wells. And then we have other small projects like the one we were discussing last week, and perhaps other future projects where we're talking about sewage treatment plants, which are also, as public water supplies, under the jurisdiction of DEP, but surrounded by private wells. Who has jurisdiction over those, and what can we do to represent the needs and the interests of those homeowners? And in the big picture, hopefully not, but potentially the aquifers that could affect other people. How do you feel about that, and what do you think is the best way to approach it? Do we?
All right, so I think we should have that on separately, because that's
Yeah.
different than general chemical.
Oh, it is. It's different, but
So
it's-
let's add that for a future
Yeah, so I wanted to
meeting.
know if we could make that an agenda item for the future, because I think it would help me if we have an understanding of how we can help people, or how we address people's concerns.
Okay, so you're
Because
asking
there-
a big question, because that's something that certainly regulators at the state level try to do with, although they've pulled back on that because of lack of staff and stuff, but there's a Water Management Act where they would look at watershed by watershed and what was going on within it, and try to volume and quantity issues, volume and quality issues, and evaluate that. So anyway, we could talk about that. We can't talk about that right now.
No, I,
What
want
is the
to-
topic that should be on the future agenda? How would
I
it be
would-
worded?
It's something that the Groundwater Protection Committee used to do more, is.
in my view, it
ground- I
would
would
be.
say water sustainability for the town. And the role of the Board of Health in that, or no role. I want to ask you, Lisa, whether, I think it's called downgradient property status. Is there something that the town could do, like, as a whole, for general chemical, if something is to happen in the future? Is that maybe
Absolutely.
something that we should
Yes.
work on?
Yes, I mean, that's why I'm saying, I'm trying to track any
Yeah.
new data. So far, I don't think we can.
Oh, we can't claim it until we absolutely see something?
Yeah.
I mean, we see indications of-
Which DEP reviewed that data and did not feel it was.
It didn't violate a standard, but it was there.
No, it didn't violate a standard, but it was there, but it was sort of trace levels, and then there was the allegation of, was it potentially related to septic discharge?
Oh, so now we're going to fight with the DEP over, okay.
Well, yeah, but the good news
where
is
to come
that,
from,
that,
if not-
that I didn't see anything that, was signaling that there was actual, like, the plume had really, it was a kind of borderline.
Okay. I
situation.
mean, TRC and Framingham do feel that it's indicative of contaminants coming from General Chemical and making their way into Sherborn and into Coarse Brook. They don't really see any other explanation for it.
Right, but.
That's as clear cut, but,
Yeah.
so
So yes,
to
we
do
could
that,
file.
do we have to, let's just say it's there and somehow it's agreed it's something that, oh, of course it's from there. Does it have to reach a violation of a drinking water standard before you can claim the down gradient?
So there are
Property status.
reportable, these things called reportable concentrations. So in general, you're not filing a notification for, you'd have to notify DP, get a release tracking number, and then file a DPS that's supported by a whole evaluation of here's why it's not coming from us, here's the groundwater flow direction. You'd have to have all of that information provided to file the DPS. So, in general, the reportable concentrations are set at the standards. So
Okay.
if you, so we're in this kind of gray zone,
Yeah.
I would say. And I think it would frankly cost a significant amount of money because the private wells are in bedrock, which means we're into that whole
Yeah.
bedrock evaluation and fractures, and that's really costly. So my first preference would be that if we start seeing things that look like, even trace level, that we believe are an indicator of plume contaminants emanating from General Chemical, I say we call a timeout, we call Steve Johnson, we have a discussion with them and make a big push to start incorporating and select private wells into the screening. And if there's a problem, that we get funds from them to put in point of entry treatment systems, which would be completely effective at mitigating whatever's in there. But we don't want to pay for it, and the homeowners shouldn't pay for it, so it should be part of the site. So I think we're actually in better shape, keep pushing it that way.
So to do the DPS, we have to also
Someone-
prove it,
I
not
would-
just say that we found it and
We would
it-
have to hire an LSP, we'd have to do the whole evaluation to support the filing of the DPS.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure I probably couldn't serve as the LSP, being on the board. But I have friends who could. But, we'd have to pay them and,
No, but I was thinking if it got to something like that I was thinking if the town could do it, it would at least be like an umbrella
Yeah.
for residents, rather than each resident having to do that on their own. So,
Absolutely. It is an option, but I just want to be clear, it's not a,
No,
it's not a
I-
$2,000 option.
No,
It's-
I was sure it wasn't, but
Yeah.
it's not a $100,000 option either.
No, I don't think it would be. And then if you had something that posed an imminent hazard or a health threat of concern, then you still go ahead and have to put it in. So the burden of cost is still on the person who filed it. The only thing the DPS relieves you of is, it has to be an
Responsibility
imminent
for-
hazard.
So it takes out the 21E sort of responsibility for
it-
cleanup?
Yes, because it's supposed to be that the source isn't on your property, so if you clean it up, you're just putting a Band-Aid on a problem
Right.
versus, the source needs to be cleaned up before that can happen. But, so it should be considered as part of the site remedy, not as a piecemeal sort of thing. So, yes, it's a regulatory option. I don't actually know that it would be the best option to take in this. I think there's clearer, more preferable options, and there is money.
So it sounds like in any case,
We're
we're not at a point where we have enough information to support making the application just yet.
No.
So, and then if we get to that point, then we could talk about
Right.
pros and cons. And I was just thinking as a way to make it easier for,
Yeah.
not to be gloomy,
Yeah.
but worst case.
But also-
people start testing their wells and they start finding more and more. And
then
more and
if-
more people are being brought in that
Right.
they could just fit into a system that's set
However,
up to help them
yeah, I
address
mean,
it.
I actually think pushing on the DEP to get them to do it, because also then it becomes, well, who's going to file the DPS? And I've never seen a circumstance where separate owners would each have to file, they could link it, but it would be really messy, I think. And from, because the town doesn't own those wells or
Right.
that property or that water. So we'd have to take on, basically, we'd have to elect to take on that liability as another party, which that brings up a whole other issue. If we were going to be we would be a performing party or something, not.
So in the interim of, let's say, it was pursued, and before it was agreed that whoever has responsibility for General Chemical at that point was going to allocate funds to pay for point treatment systems, the town would have to make sure that it happened?
No, what I'm saying
Okay.
is someone would have to file the DP. So you have to be some
No,
kind
I get
of-
that somebody
right.
has to file it,
Right,
but
so
it
who
does
would-
it by filing it and
Yeah, no.
bringing attention to a problem.
No, actually,
Does it-
DPS is a protection only from certain things. So if there is an imminent hazard, the person who filed the DPS has to mitigate
Okay.
it. So you could go to General
Yes, that's
Chemical and
what I
say,
was-
I want
yeah.
you to mitigate it, but
But there'd be a delay
somebody
and
has
you've-
to mitigate it.
Okay,
So-
that's what I
If
meant.
a formal-
I was afraid of.
Yeah,
So-
it's actually kind of complicated.
Okay,
We
all
probably
right,
don't
so,
wanna get
all right,
into
no
this.
simple solution there.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Okay, let's see, which other thing? So 41, no, we don't have enough time to start on 41 North Main. Let's see. Just noting that the application for 24 North Main Street was withdrawn. We have a copy of the Board of Health Annual Report. That was just prepared. Goes in the town report. If anyone had any comments, I guess I could give them to you.
We got a lot of alpacas here. That's my take home.
Yeah, but it's being sent in, so unless there's something you want to add, each of the reports is done by whomever.
Sometimes I haven't had time to write, we could write something up on a special project, but other than that, it's pretty
Yeah.
much, what does the Board of Health do each year?
Yeah.
And,
Well, the Lyme
those things
disease
are-
numbers are not surprising, but disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
41. A lot of cases.
So, actually, do you get those numbers from the doctors?
No, it's from
DNA.
it's on Maven, on the, we get it from the state.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
They're trying-
it goes from
So that
doctors
has to
up
be
to the
reported.
state,
Yeah,
and they
it's
And
know
then,
State
where
to
the
then it
person
comes
lives,
back
and
to
it comes
us.
back out. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Let's see, we got a whole bunch of food establishment reports. Couple things I liked, I just wanted to note quickly. I like how on the back, I found it easy to track, so you can see the date of the first inspection, and then there might be comments of things that need corrective action. And then she dates, the return visit that verified that it was taken care of. So I thought that was quite helpful. I want to ask if she could, I'm so used to seeing the 0 in this box, if there are none, just makes it easier.
Well,
Or is there a reason to not put a 0 in there now?
there's no reason, she just mustn't
Okay.
do that. But the forms, the next item, I think, or the item above the
Oh,
food.
true. Let's
The
see what
forms
the
are-
new ones look like.
You're not going to see this form anymore.
Never mind
It's
then.
changed.
All right. So basically, everyone was doing pretty well. I mean, while there were things to be taken care of, there were not any or many. I don't think there were any violations.
I think there were some violations that were then remediated, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But it looks like everybody.
Yeah, I mean, none of the
Yeah, they
major
all-
Oh,
ones
no,
on
no,
the front
yeah.
page.
No, 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 none on
So-
those.
No criticals.
Yeah. Okay. And as Ellen mentioned, there are new forms coming out, and so we have to throw out all these, and they're expensive. Because I guess that's the way of controlling who gets access and uses them. So, and when I say, are they like multi-layered, so you can write through, because that may
Yeah,
not be
only two.
recyclable.
Only two.
So
Yeah.
it'll be fuel for the waste-to-energy incinerator, unfortunately, but, okay.
Looks like we do have
So
one
it'll be
site
a-
that had front page checks.
Oh, yeah, I thought there was one.
It'll be a 3-page form moving forward. So they're adding a
Oh.
page.
Oh,
But
that's
they're
too
making-
bad, because that seems like a recipe for getting separated. 3 for 1, oh well. Oh well, it's progress. Let's see.
So in terms of purchasing the new forms, do you need anything from us, or?
No, I'm just letting you know that
You'll be purchasing
I'll
new
be buying
forms.
them and you'll see it on a warrant.
Sounds good.
It's sort of a no choice.
Yeah, that makes it easier choice.
Let's see, we had the minutes from the last meeting. I had a couple teeny weeny things that I gave Ellen. Removal of an apostrophe or something.
I found a little tiny typo.
I wrote a
That
bunch of
important.
minutes in my plans.
The date.
So do we want to vote
I
to
might not
approve the
even notice
1219
it.
minutes with the
Okay,
minor
yeah,
edits
it's so
provided to
minor.
Ellen?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Do you want a second? You can second.
Do you
Or
want to
second.
correct the little
Okay.
tiny typo that I found?
Where
I
is
think,
it?
I think any of the minor edits we can just provide to Ellen, if it's not a substantive edit.
Is it?
It takes like 2 seconds. It's the second to last line of the first page. On the left, Mr. Camp.
Ah, yep.
Oh,
That's all.
You got downgraded.
I'm open.
That's all.
Okay.
Nothing
So,
major.
all in
But it's-
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. That brings us to 7:30, so Bullard. Hi.
Mind if I close the door?
Yeah, we might need it open, and it's kind of an open meeting thing sometimes. Do we need to have the door open? Is there,
But I don't know why it's open.
oh, okay.
Do you want it closed?
I think drafty.
Thanks.
Okay.
Maybe. Maybe the gradient is in our direction.
Okay. Oh, you know what? So Mark will be here?
He will be here.
Okay.
Yes, he should be here soon.
Yeah.
Not a variance hearing.
Yeah,
So,
I guess we
but-
can, yeah, we'll ask him when he comes if we had any questions. It'd be great if he was here, but, okay. All right. So we had a bunch more information, although, there's a lot. I'm trying to think of how I would summarize it. I'm not sure that I saw anything in particular that made me say, there it is, you know, the thing that's different. And I think in looking at the minutes from the meeting in December 19th, there was, you know, a comment of, can't we just allow yet another bedroom on? Because it used to be 3 systems, and it went to 1, but really, it's only 1 bedroom per system, so that's already been used up quite clearly. And, there was one thing that struck me, and that is that the carriage house because of a basement that's been finished that I don't believe we were counting before, now it's up to an 8-room, 4-bedroom already, which is a problem. So, did anyone else, I don't know, notice that, but that just,
Clearly, it's a
8-room.
four-bedroom, the carriage house would be four-bedroom
under the proposed,
Right,
but
but
I'm saying
I think in the
it's
email-
already a problem because it's already at 4 technically by room count issues, because I don't believe the basement was finished maybe when we first reviewed it all, so,
Right.
At an 8-room house, you would go by room coverage, more than 8.
Right. And so I was just going to say.
But it's still 4 bedrooms, though.
Oh, it's still, right.
I thought,
No.
It's still-
Right
it's
now,
3
it's
bedrooms.
3.
Oh, okay.
But it has 8 rooms, but
Okay.
in the
Oh, okay.
regulations,
That's
it
right,
says.
that's right, yeah.
8,
Okay.
more than
Only
8.
do divide by 2 and round down above 8.
okay.
Right, but that's also because the base presumption is that all single families are a 3-room.
Right, 3-bed.
Right, so greater than 8 is sort of,
But a 3-bedroom house can have 8 rooms.
okay.
Okay, so we're back to whatever, oh, and the one other thing that I found related to another project that we have in town is, we have information from DEP about something similar, and that is, under certain circumstances, being able to put in a 1-bedroom system, which would go back to one of the separate systems, presumably that could be for the barn and the caretaker's apartment there. And that would address the issue.
But if we have a septic system that's large enough to accommodate what we propose,
I think we would argue that your septic system isn't large enough to accommodate based on the historical approval and the variances and the rest of it.
Yeah. It's that the 1-bedroom expansion has already been used up on that system, so we can't add, even though it's got the capacity by calculations to go to 11, that's not how, when we grant variances, we will allow 1 more bedroom, which is already better than what the state would do in a similar circumstance, so it's,
Oh, I understand that. Is that part of the redesign system to eliminate all the state? Working on the surface.
right.
At our last meeting, I thought we discussed that it would be 1 bedroom per structure. This is unique.
That's what he
Yeah.
I don't-
suggested.
No,
He
that
said-
was
Mr.
a
Pope said-
suggestion from out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
not
yeah,
from
that wasn't our
the board,
suggestion.
Yeah, because for me, I'd say like, what does that mean? Like, you're sort of saying it's one system, and so you could be like, okay, fine, we've got like 5 3-bedroom houses. They all got an extra bedroom, you know.
Right.
It wouldn't, it
It's a
just wouldn't make
slippery
sense to me,
slope
right?
concept, yeah.
Like, I think the intent is to say what we're managing isn't the houses that are built, it's the septic systems that support them. So I don't know that we'd, so I think that came up. I don't think it came up from the board.
Yeah. Right. That's my recollection.
So we were in favor of deed restriction, which doesn't
For the basement,
really
right?
alter, yeah, for
It
the
was for the basement and the
rooms
main
that
house.
don't have windows and that sort of thing, so,
And we sent, was a sample deed restriction
Yes.
sent?
Yes.
and, you know, frankly, I didn't do the recount with 2 rooms out. Does it make it bedroom count-wise?
If we take
No.
out the 2
Yeah, I
rooms
was
from the
thinking-
basement, I thought it
think it
did.
did.
Took
I
out the
thought-
2, but
I thought that's
then-
why we suggested it.
Yeah.
Let's see, Don,
And is that with counting the art room?
But
let's see, I'm just looking at last meeting's notes. 8 rooms covering the guest house.
6 bedrooms,
House.
3 bedrooms.
Trying to get it down here. So we're trying to get the house down to 6-bedroom house.
No, it already is. So the total room count, I
But
thought.
the room count throws it off, though, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's where the deed restriction came in,
Right.
yeah, which Matt had mentioned at the bottom of the minutes. to
I think the
suggest that.
10 is the total it has to be at to have the +1 variance, right? Isn't that what the bottom line was, that it has to stay at 10
It
total?
has to stay at 10, because it's already got the +1.
Right, so it was 9 plus 1 is 10, so we have to come up, with a way to make it so that,
Excuse me.
Which is
Basic-
why the separate septic system, since the DEP says under special circumstances, you could have a one-bedroom system. I mean, and we'd have to define it very
or
cautiously.
deed restriction
Yeah.
in the basement
Or deed
of the main
restriction.
house. I mean, there's a couple options, I think, right? That-
Yeah, those are the two I see.
Well, when we go back to the April 2016 meeting minutes,
Yep.
this is probably designed.
I don't know if they have a copy, I don't know if they have a copy of those, do we have?
Let's see if I have those.
Is there a difference between what it's designed for or no?
I believe it was designed, I have the plans right here. I can tell you that. I think it always has been. Yes, that's why I was saying, it always has been a variation to it. So it was designed for 10 on the septic plans.
What was the date?
So 6 plus 3 plus 1. So, but it's,
Here's the approved plan.
Is this the same one? Yeah.
It's based on the existing 13 rooms.
Yeah, same one, right? Facility use?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
13, yeah. Guess one. Propose, okay. Thanks, thank you, Dan.
So we had 13 rooms in the main house, which equated to 6 bedrooms.
right,
And we had, the guest house was 3.
Three.
And it always had been 3.
right, and 1 in the
And we were
barn.
asking for 1 in the barn.
And how are you counting for the basement rooms that were then added to the main house? Because those weren't in the 13, right? That's why we suggested a deed recording, because there's additional 2 finished basement rooms that weren't in this.
Right.
And so
But the room count,
I totally have no doubt that if we take the 2 rooms out, then the room count would work. I think the challenge we have is if you don't have a deed restriction to say those aren't in play, then you're at 15, right?
I don't know. No, I think it's still,
I think it's still a problem.
I think it's 13.
With the basement rooms?
But it says right here, the guest house is clearly a 4-bedroom house already,
That's-
so,
yeah, you're
no, you
trying-
already have 6 plus 4, so you're at the 10, and then you're saying you want to add 1 more, so that would bring it to 11.
It's the guest house that's causing the issue, and you're trying to find a way to
Exactly,
get the
to-
guest house to be a 4-bedroom, and you're looking at the main house as a subtraction to
Exactly.
the bedroom count.
Right, so that's the issue, so we're at 6 plus 4 already, so we're at the 10 that the system was designed for.
6 plus 4 plus 1.
No,
plus the
6
one
plus
down.
3 plus 1.
Well, if they count the guest house as a 4, if they add that
But that's future, I'm talking about.
future, right.
Okay,
But right
future.
now, exactly, there's 631,
631, 9.
and then they
but the
may
guest
want to go to
house-
641, which would be, the guest house is the,
So that's what we're talking about, the
Factor.
Yes.
proposed, so we're just trying to come up with a way
So-
that it can stay basically at 10. Because it's at 10 right now.
but what confused me is back in the April 2015, we had gone through the whole room count thing, and we came up with 12 bedrooms.
12 bedroom? You mean 12?
But we were advised that we couldn't do the variance that was granted. And the current design is 10 bedrooms. If we can eliminate the codified local upgrade approval, then we can increase by 1 bedroom to 11 bedrooms. Which we
Okay.
did. So we've got it, but you only approved it for 10 because that's what the plan
Okay,
called for.
I guess this goes back to what we were discussing last time, where the starting point
Great.
is historically, it's a 4-bedroom house is the original one. So
Right.
that's 4. And then the carriage house was always 3,
Yeah.
and then the 1 apartment.
there was
So
never,
that's-
Never
it
an
Never an
apartment.
apartment.
So we
Oh,
started
there
at
was never an
7.
apartment, okay.
was never, I think the barn is new even, or the apartment's definitely new in the barn. That's a new apartment.
Was it 4 or 5 for the old house?
Initially, it was 4.
So it would only
That
been
went
7.
from 4 to 5.
And that's based on
They
the,
got the additional
Okay.
bedroom.
So they went from 7 to 8 bedrooms.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the permit revision was for, right? From you in December 2015, 10 bedrooms to account for the existing 13 rooms in the main house, the 6 bedrooms, plus the 3-bedroom guest house, and the addition of 1 bedroom in the horse barn. So that was 10, but, right? So that's where it was. But you're saying, shouldn't we be able to add 1 more room without?
Because, the assessors called it 4 bedrooms, 16 rooms. I think they count squares and not graphs. So are we designing based on what the assessors call bedrooms, or are we designing based on the Sherborn Board of Health regulations, which is practically room count?
but I think the Sherborn, I mean, that's like going back to like, way back.
Yeah, so the way for older homes that had some sort of septic system before Title V, before septic regulations in Sherborn, whatever, what we're supposed to look at, according to DEP, and they've been really, really clear on this point with us, for some other things, is that you look at what people thought the house was originally, if there are records for that, and that's your starting point. So if you're going to, so for granting variances or looking at upgrades, what have you, it's off of that if it's documented. So we have documentation that says that that house originally was treated as a 4-bedroom. And then it got upgraded to 5. So it
Yeah,
really
that
already
was-
got, and probably,
that
was that
assessor's-
with variances when it got
Yes.
upgraded? So it really got an extra bedroom back
The way I
then.
understand the DEP.
I don't think it's each time you
No,
do an
not, but-
upgrade, you keep getting to add another bedroom onto,
but it's-
from the original, so.
If you've got a 16-room house and they only furnish 4 bedrooms, is that really a 4-bedroom house? Or is DEP saying, look at the total room count?
I think the room
And
count isn't
now
for a
it's room
historical
count.
property. I think that's for a contemporary property, so you could
Yes,
say.
yes.
And that was in 1999, by the way.
Because
that
we've
assessor.
looked at 4-room bungalows that were treated as 2-bedroom, because that's how they were documented, and so that's what they,
Right.
now we wouldn't necessarily consider that a
But as you get
2-bedroom.
into larger homes, though, it's clear both Title V and certain regulations.
Right, and so.
Yes.
So that's what we're
but so I
trying to
think the
do.
question, like, I think there's sort of, we're conflating like 4 different things simultaneously. I think the first question is, what was approved? So there's a first time that you got to go to the well and say, we are putting the septic system in. This is what we're asking for. I think my impression is that what was approved was a 10-room system. So I think that I see a 5-room in the August minutes, it looks like 5-bedroom main house. There's no, the previous application, 5-bedroom main house was approved with variances. Then there's a 3-bedroom guest house. And then we want a 9-bedroom design. We then say 10-bedroom design. We're now saying that really the 10-bedroom was an 11-bedroom design, and that really the room count was 16, although the plans were 13. And so it just gets really squishy to me, and I think ultimately it's a question for how much squishy is sort of okay. And I think there's a piece that we say we want to go back to what was the original system, to in a good faith effort try to say, you're making it better, and we appreciate that, and there should be incentives to a homeowner. But I think that those incentives are, for the system, is my own impression, and I think there's sort of a point that you have to say, this is what it is now, as opposed to re-adjudicating, minutes and minutes and minutes going past over multiple boards. And so I think if you guys said this was a 10-room system and a 3-room system, and a 6, a 3, and a 1 to bring you a 10-room system, the same system can't then just be an 11-room system because we'd like something different, having sought variances, got variances, had that be the plan. Like, it just is sort of like, nothing has changed in the circumstances or the physical layout of the house, and now we're saying that what we called something before, we're gonna call something else now. And that, to me, feels inconsistent. And that's a piece that I find.
It has changed because the previous house was.
I'm talking about 2015 to 2018. I'm not talking about 2000 or 74 or the
Yeah, or
remote ones.
1999.
I'm saying, since the system was installed, since this house was built, since you came to the board, asking for the variances in the past, you said, this is at least I wasn't there, so this is what I see in the minutes, is that, John, this is a 10-room system. And so if we now say the same thing all these years has been 11-room system, it would raise the question, well, why didn't you call it an 11-room system? If you didn't, my presumption is that there's a reason you didn't call it that, right? Like, if you felt then like, oh, we can totally get 11, nobody would say, I've designed an 11, I can get an 11, we're going to call it a 10. There's literally no upside to you or the homeowner, is there?
Well, there was originally the original homeowner because he was selling the property at a loss and he didn't want to put.
No, but like by the time we're into 2015 and we're sort of when the board said this is what the system supports, I can't think of any reason why somebody would build an 11-bedroom system on what they felt qualified as an 11-bedroom house and would call it a 10. And if there's a reason, I'm totally happy to hear it and to think about it and to say, but that for me is a struggle, is that it feels like we're moving the goalposts here. And if we weren't, we would have called it 11 bedrooms then.
Okay, so, and I'd like to go back to just three dwellings. One had a 5-bedroom septic attached to it, the main house.
We don't
When,
know what it was designed for, but yeah.
but it was not that long ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have calculations
for
from
a 5-bedroom.
2015 that showed, what we had was a plan showing 5 bedrooms on the second floor.
I think you're talking
And
about the
then-
No,
original
no, I'm
system.
talking about the prior owner.
Oh,
Wasn't there a
this is-
system already put in?
Separate systems.
Yeah, they were planning on separate, that is correct, yeah, this is
But is
dangerous.
your
Okay.
question what was planned or
And
what was
it
in
was,
place?
well, hold on. So it was going to be 5, which was already taking advantage of a 1-bedroom increase on what the property, that system had been rated for previously. Okay, so it was getting variances, and it got the 1-bedroom upgrade already. So that's 5. So just looking at them individually, that's where that one was. The carriage house was 3-bedroom.
Yeah.
Yep,
And stayed at 3.
yep.
Okay, so if that had been, so the 5 already got their thing, so that's 5. The 3 could have gone to 4 if it stayed as a separate system, not combined. And then, but that 4 kind of got thrown into adding the
Barn bedroom.
barn.
Yeah, the
So-
apartment in the barn.
Well, I guess I disagree that the original 5 bedroom was +1. Because it was Jameson bought it as 5 bedrooms, they sold it as 5 bedrooms, they designed it as 5 bedrooms.
But they paid taxes
well, I
on 4
mean, but-
bedrooms, right?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
So, but that's, again, the DEP tells us to look at what historic records are available that says somewhere in the past, before things were as well documented, but we must have had something that said it was viewed as a 4-bedroom.
Well, that's what you just
It had some kind
cited.
of septic
That's what
attached to it.
1999, the 1999 assessors called it 4 bedrooms. You just
And so
acknowledge
the
that. And so then
system was that,
was-
and so that's what we're supposed to go off of according to DEP.
So, I mean,
So I understand by room count, but the rules were different back then, and so we're supposed to look at what they had there originally, or, yeah. So
I guess,
that's what we've been, we could pull the emails from them that instruct that quite clearly, that we have to use some,
so I guess
Assumption of flows.
So
my,
you're saying that whatever the assessors said,
I think you have to say I have a historical record, and so that's a historical record we have. If there's another historical record,
I don't
right?
think it helps, actually, the whole
No,
situation.
but I think,
yeah.
but I think the question is like, you either have a piece that's a basis for financial transactions with a town, or you have a self-report of, no, swear to God, 5 bedrooms. You know, they're both squishy. I'd go with the one that was on paper and had money changing hands, right? Because I just think it's a question of like, no, they used it as 5, like, what's the basis of that assertion that I can say, here's the thing that I can hold the next person who comes in and says, no, they used it as 6 bedrooms. And you're like, really? Because there's 6 rooms total. And they're like, nope, totally 6 bedrooms. Like, I can't say to them, I don't believe you. I need to say, like, what's the basis of this in some objective body? And so I think we looked at this, it's not there. And I think it's just a question of like, we're really trying to figure out how to help you get to what you want to do. I think that what you're hearing from us is, it seems like the only way to get there is the deed restriction would be like my
Or
take
the
on.
one-bedroom
Or the
cistern.
one-bedroom, right. Right,
Right.
and I get,
We have something
Yeah.
saying.
Apparently,
No, under the disturbance act.
Yeah.
We have a high groundwater table, so it would meet the construction requirements for sure.
oh, and it would
Yeah,
be
then you
considered
just
new
not
construction?
I mean, I think if,
Because there was not anything, no
Did the barn ever have
caretakers,
one?
nothing.
Barn only had a toilet
Oh, okay.
So, but it never had a system? It was only the
and no
guest?
septic. no.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it had a septic, yeah, it had a septic.
Let me see,
For that place.
for the
Yeah,
toilet.
I thought it had something,
Let me pull that plan.
and that makes it a separate system. Does that,
Each house.
Could that be an
barn-
upgrade?
It's a stretch with it only being a bathroom,
yeah,
because it wasn't being used for anything but a bathroom. Let me pull that plan, that's right here. That was on the Jamison with the original plan. And the original plan did have a separate system for the house. It didn't have a proposal for the bath, but it did show a cesspool for the toilet in the barn. If you like.
yeah, and I'm sure we have no other information other than
No, we don't.
cesspool,
'cause I've
so,
looked.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe there wouldn't be.
It was separate septic.
Yeah. Right, so this is all way better than that was, that's for sure, but we're just trying to be consistent and know that it,
Deed restriction on the basement room, is that?
Two basement rooms in the main house?
yeah.
That just,
I'm trying to remember that count. That's what I remember is the like punchline, but do we need to just look at that count again?
Yeah, I think
It's
one
in
more
the
time, just to
minutes.
be sure.
But I think like the August 15 one's also in the minutes, and it seems like that's like possibly a transcription error just because it doesn't fit with the minutes before and after.
I think there may have been changes since in between whatever the plans were at
Yeah.
that time.
right.
And what was
and then
submitted.
what got-
And we have to go by what's
So-
on
Can we just look at, because my recollection is like, if we can do a deed restriction, it solves the problem.
Yeah.
Can you just explain, like, we have deed restrictions done all the time.
Yeah.
I'm just curious why it's such a stumbling
I'm
block.
okay with being totally ignorant as to why it's a stumbling block. I just don't see another way to
Right.
get to the,
Explain.
yeah.
When you actually read the deed restriction, it says, something to the effect that, until the system is upgraded to that capacity.
Right.
Yeah,
What's,
I think we'd agree with that.
we're saying that those,
The
you're
two
saying they're not
basement- we're not-
bedrooms
we're not
now, and
saying
all the
that-
deed restriction is saying they're continue to not be
And that-
used as
but I-
What we're
bedrooms.
saying is, the system is capable of eliminating.
Yeah.
No, but
Well,
that's
but
included.
we're
in-
But
saying
I would-
no,
but I would
so-
say, I think, right.
Too bad.
But I think for the question of like, can we do what we want in the guest house, I think you can with the deed restriction. Again, I think the question of, I think that's also sample language, not, like, is that the only language possible for a deed restriction? But I,
That's a pretty important
Yeah.
part.
It's standard.
but, I mean, that's
To
a question
not
mark
have
question.
that phrase
No,
that
no,
they
but
don't
I-
like
but-
would make it meaningless.
Right, no, but I'm just like I think, from my standpoint, I think, I hear that you totally think it's 11-bedroom system. We don't. So the question is, how can we get a fourth bedroom in the guest house, which is the goal I think we collectively would count as a success. And so I think that we haven't convinced you that it's 10. You haven't convinced us that it's 11. And so I think it's an,
Right, I mean, we can still write a number that the system can handle.
But
no,
by
no, but I,
approval
right,
process,
but I think it's like
But
starting,
can't-
we can't get there.
right.
Yeah.
And I think just a slippery slope of like, this is what we said we'd do, and now we're doing something different. Like, I think we're just sort of stuck if we felt like this was an 11-bedroom system then.
And this is paralleling somewhat what DEP does, which doesn't allow, if it was a DEP variances that were granted, they couldn't even add a
They wouldn't be
bedroom.
allowed to get the
Yeah.
extra bedroom,
So
that
this
is
is
correct.
already
Trying to
an
Excuse me.
extra accommodation,
Right.
so,
Which I think was earned by changing the plan so the variances weren't needed.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and then this says 10 bedrooms. That's what was submitted on the application. So that was December
Yeah.
2015, so.
So are you counting rooms over there?
No.
Oh.
I already did. It's
We already-
five on the second floor, 8 on the first floor from the original house.
And then-
And then they added the basement rooms that you want
Added
deed
2 more.
recorded.
But so I guess for the original
Wait,
house, how,
5 and 8 and 2 more,
Can we-
so
can we
it's
just-
15?
I put it all away, but let me,
can we just take it, can we just have you do the room count for the main house with us?
No, because that makes it, even with
Yeah.
the deed restriction,
Right,
that's too many
but I think we should
rooms.
just look at it together, because I think right now you have a strong incentive to
just-
help us remember what we
let
did.
me reopen it.
The floor plan
I think just for the main,
renovation or post?
But they're-
pre-renovation,
No.
so there's
I
no
wanna see
renovation,
what it
I
is
think
now.
we just want to see the big house, the main house.
Pre or post?
No, I
But
want
I
to see,
think, how's the
The
big,
main house,
Post.
yeah, now,
Do you have them there, Dan?
current, yeah, we have them.
this is how the post bought the house.
okay.
Okay.
And what,
I'll take a look, but I'll
This
take
is
it.
pre, and then,
Yes, that's the one I just counted 8 and 5. Second
Oh,
floor, make sure I did it right. 1, 2, 3. The sitting room was considered a
on this,
fifth
right?
bedroom.
Yeah.
and was the
Or
foyer?
They'll give me
No,
one of
no,
these.
we didn't count the foyer, per se.
Yeah,
I count 11 rooms,
if we take out the basement?
so that's a
Sunroom is-
5-bedroom, which is exactly what we were assuming.
How'd you get 11 rooms?
Don't ask.
no, you should like that number,
2,
'Cause I get-
3, 4, 5, 6, oh, sorry,
oh,
7.
were we not counting the sunroom?
The sunroom's heated, so accordingly,
Sorry, I
according to
missed
what we were
family
told.
area.
The sunroom is heated?
Oh.
Yeah.
So we count it.
Office, 8,
I came up
geez,
with 13.
3,
Yeah,
4,
13.
5, 6.
I get 8 and 5,
7, 8,
if you count
Okay.
the sitting room as a bedroom.
10, 11, 12. Okay, I get the same. I get 13. So, this is the pre.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we're into
So
this
now-
new one.
Did they ever build the 5-bedroom separate system?
Separate?
Yeah,
No.
okay,
didn't.
they put
They
in
had a-
plans for it, but then they sold it, and so
Yeah,
it made it
Jamison, or whatever the
moot.
name was.
Jamerson.
Jamerson was going to build 2 separate septic systems
Okay,
to replace, the main house had a septic tank and a leach line. The guest house had a cesspool, and the barn had a cesspool. They weren't gonna do anything with the barn back then, but they were going to update the septic systems for both the guest house as well as the main house.
This is the renovation.
so they
This
wouldn't
is
have
current.
been able to do what they planned on their room count.
So this is the house as it exists today is being counted. And I can write on this too? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4.
So is the porch sunroom
I
heated
think
or
we said that
no?
was conditioned.
Is what you're calling the porch sunroom, is that a heated room or is that just like glass?
Off to the side of the living room.
That was
there.
I've got it.
Unheated,
Yeah,
okay,
you turn the other one into the guest bedroom.
right.
2.
Yeah, and you got rid of the sitting room too, it looks like.
Yeah,
8,
turn that
9,
into
10.
Yes.
All right, so we get 13.
Upstairs.
We're not counting that, or counting?
Well, so,
Yeah.
so I'm counting 1, 2,
That got removed,
5,
sitting room.
6, if I count.
And where's the basement?
6, 7.
Right.
Is
I mean, I
Is
think
that
that's
this?
what-
Is that
I think
this?
you could call it 6, 7.
Is that the basement?
So then we'll count 7. Then this would be 8, 9, 10, 11, right? And then we said previously that the board had said, but the board had said specifically, I think, the arts and crafts room, right? I feel like there's a specific comment. Do you remember, Dan, there was a comment on the arts and crafts room, like accounting? I feel like there's some comment because it was, with regards to the craft room on the second floor above the garage in the main house, it does not have, oh, it would be included in the room count, okay. Yep, okay, so that'd be 8, 9, 10, 11, so that'd be 12. But so then we'd be at,
What's that, 12,
13.
the original?
No, I get
Is it-
12. I
no,
don't,
no, I think it's, for her, it's a kitchen, living room, the
Oh.
kitchen family room.
oh, yeah, so if you're gonna count that as 2 rooms, not 1. 'cause
Okay.
you
But
said-
Oh,
So
okay, yeah,
that's
12.
13, you take out 2, you have 11,
So then you're at 5.
5.
Right, and so,
4,
And
5,
that would
6.
give the
Lost me on that
extra.
map, what happened?
So we're saying,
if you do the deed restriction, you're at 13,
Oh, right.
if you take out the 2, you're down to 11, divide by 2, you round down, it's 5
but are we at,
in the main house.
5 plus
And then
4 plus 1.
3, that's gonna go up to 4,
Lisa,
plus
can,
the 1. right?
Can you just walk me through count? I've like
Yeah.
written 3 different numbers in each of my rooms, and
Okay,
so now,
so
so
if
on
we're
the
counting,
first floor,
if the kitchen and the family room are counted as 2 rooms, you have,
yeah,
6 on the first floor. Okay? Then you have 2 in the basement. That's the theater and the exercise room, so that's 8. And then you have 5 on the second floor,
In one room.
okay?
yep,
So that's
we're-
13.
perfect.
So that's why
So we'd say
we
divide
came
that
up with
by
a deed
2,
restriction, which is
round
what
down.
we talked about last week, that if
Yeah.
you were willing to just say that the 2 rooms that are not serving as bedrooms, there's no bathroom down there right now, anything, if you were willing to put something on that said, they're not bedrooms now, and they're not gonna be converted to bedrooms in the future, then that's fine. And if someone did want to convert them to bedrooms in the future, then they would have to come back and redesign the septic to accommodate the additional rooms.
And so the rationale there would be 13 going to 11. 11 divided by 2 is 5.5, rounds down to 5.
Down to 5,
Big
and
house
then you
is
could
5, guest house
you
is
could
4,
add the
barn
extra
stays
one to the
stays
guest
1.
house, that's 4, and then you still have the barn. So that's 10, so there's no issue, right? That's what the,
Well, that's what we talked about last time, and
Right.
then the issue came up of how many rooms was it originally? And so Ellen checked the historic. No, she checked the historic records, which called it a 4-bedroom originally.
Yeah.
4-bedroom went to 5, already used up that 5. So anyway, that's
I
the
mean-
thing that was different versus, right, the
Comparing
discussion.
apples and oranges here. Assessors,
But
I know, but that's
Yeah.
what DEP has told us to do.
But I think,
and also that assessor's map was before the basement rooms were put in, that was from 1999.
but I also
That
think, like,
4
bigger
bedrooms.
picture, I suspect that us saying what we think and you saying what you think will probably change neither of our minds
Yeah.
about that at this point. So I think it's really a question of, I think it sounds like the 1-bedroom septic isn't an option. I think with kind of the room counts, we feel like the deed restriction on the basement is an option, and
It's a
probably the only
workable
option we can see to do what you want to do, barring other structural changes. Like, I think there are other pieces of, like, you kind of see where we are for room counts, but that's, to me, is much more appealing than making 2 other rooms disappear in terms of making super rooms or other parts. But certainly, whatever the strategy was to reduce it, so if you're like the family room and office or 1 room, or other pieces to consolidate room, not that I'd say to do that, but like, I guess what I'm hearing from the board is like, there's not a way to get around this other than reducing the room count by 2 to give you the 1.
And the reason I'm
Unless-
okay with deed restrictions for those 2 rooms is that I don't think anybody should be using those as a bedroom
Yeah.
because there's no egress. I mean, there's 1 egress, so, well,
I don't think the building inspector would allow it.
Not for a
actually, one of them might have, looks like it has 2 egresses. So one does have a window, so that is pretty important, I think, that's a walkout.
I'd take the deed
Doors?
restriction.
Which would
Yeah.
be a replacement septic system.
So
I think it would be
Yeah.
important,
Consider-
otherwise that becomes a perfect au-pair
Yeah, they-
apartment because it's got its own entrance.
Individually, if they
And it
actually-
has,
And that would go 3 to 4, individual guest house.
maybe not, I mean, it has a mudroom nearby,
still
but
think the deed
in
is-
any case,
I don't know why they're
that
afraid.
would still,
But we'll find out.
Once we put the deed restriction on, I'm also hearing that there's no way to lift that by.
That's not true. No, so if,
By, well, you know, by expanding the septic system.
The present one.
right,
But that present one serves 3 facilities.
So if we were to increase the size of that, we could lift the deed restriction?
I don't believe the
no, we
board's saying that.
can't. If you need variances, we can't give any more variances for a larger thing. Now, in the future,
We wouldn't need any more
technologies may
variances. We wouldn't need
change,
any more variances than you're already granted.
except for getting bigger.
well,
Well, but what I would say is, I think, going to the question, I think that nothing is different here. Like, I just think, what I'm worried about is I feel like we've got the best possible solution, and I would take the win as it stands, because I think that the more we dig into this, the harder it'll be.
Oh, no, you don't want that one, that would, I can grab it if you
wait,
like.
so is there a
Got it,
plan
Dan?
to,
If not, I can get
to
it.
convert the 2
You have it?
rooms in the basement to bedrooms? Is that, okay, so I think
I think they may, I'm going to guess, but
Right.
maybe you want flexibility for the future.
Right.
But that may be,
So that comes at a
Right.
cost, I
That-
guess.
right.
So-
But I think- but you
Right.
could
It's
also
only
say-
money.
But also, if you had flexibility in the future, you could also say if some other room somewhere else changed.
Right.
Like you need to have the bedroom count stay the same. I don't think you can add more bedrooms and add more septic to have that come out okay. But I think the question of can this room ever be a bedroom, from the Board of Health standpoint, if somebody came
If
back and
something
said,
else
hey,
changed.
we're actually gonna knock out this section of the guest house, so these are gonna be one big room, those are no longer a bedroom.
Right.
Then I think that's something that the board would consider to say that, like, for us, it's,
I don't think they would come back and say, we want to use the theater room.
unless somebody's like really bad, I don't see somebody ending up in the basement, but,
The potential may be that they want to add another room to the barn.
yeah. So I would say, you saw how much fun this has been, I suspect that would be less, because then I think you, again, say, from the standpoint of like, this is the disposal works permit, it says 10 bedrooms, this is everything along the way that says 10 bedrooms, and I think for us, it's to figure out how do we make this work as a 10-bedroom plan, not as we think we'll get to 11, based on what's been submitted.
If they subdivide the property and put the carriage house in a separate block and put a separate septic system on that.
Three
at
to
that
four.
point,
a
it might
diff-
have to be a three-bedroom, because if it's standalone, not part of this campus concept, that would be hard to argue for not meeting the minimum three-bedroom system.
No, he's
No,
saying,
no, I
he's
think,
saying
but
down the
if he
road,
subdivided
they
it-
could subdivide it
Yeah.
and put a new.
Right.
That,
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Consider it its
And
own.
we design for a four-bedroom.
That's
We
allowed.
wouldn't get the plus one.
right, but you just couldn't get any variances
couldn't
on that
go-
because it would be new construction, it would be considered new construction?
Yeah.
Because you'd be,
Right.
Yeah, it would
'Cause you'd be
be
changing the house.
construction.
To,
How we change the house.
if you're adding a bedroom to it, that's, right, the carriage house, the whole reason we're doing this is
You're
to make
saying
it
down the
affordable.
road,
if they subdivide it,
But you were saying earlier, you were allowing a plus one.
To a repaired septic system, not, so you've used your plus one for the repaired septic system. If you now say, we're
lost it.
subdividing it, we're revising the house, we're adding a bedroom to the house, but we've now subdivided it, can you give us a variance for new construction because we've got high groundwater and we don't meet Sherborn regs?
Right.
It would be hard for
Yeah,
me to
yeah,
see that
I think that-
working out
Yeah.
with
it
variances.
does,
Yeah.
that's a, now I understand what
Yeah.
you're saying. Because
Yeah.
I'm saying 3 to
Yeah.
4. But you're right, because it's, the whole complex already got their extra bedroom.
Right.
If they had done it prior to this, I don't know, it gets complicated, because it's an existing property that we're dealing with.
Right. But, so what if, yeah, there's no way, like, the only way I can see is if your existing system fails,
is-
and then you subdivided it, then you're like, I've got a failed system, but that seems real rough.
you don't want to do that.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, and this one, I think, already
I've got so many piles of
got a
this.
lot just by having the plans submitted previously for the two separate systems, before being
Yes.
combined. So it, bunch of stuff that you wouldn't have gotten taking a straight path.
A linear path.
Convince the powers that be that are accepting the deed, what's the process of that? Just submit it on or another?
Once you file it at the Registry of Deeds, you bring me a copy that has the
Book and page number.
registry,
Yeah.
And I think you already sent that to Dana.
Yeah.
You sent a copy of that.
yep.
And so, what if anything do we vote on? Is there anything for us to act on
Well,
as a board?
Just so the board knows, typically, once a plan is under your review,
Yeah,
usually I'll either wait for your direction to do this. If they show just one bedroom and a carriage house with the deed recording,
You
I
would
can
have their
approve it
conditional
outside of a
approval.
meeting
Yeah.
with your permission. If you hadn't seen it, or hadn't made a decision, and you wanted to see the deed
Yeah.
recording, then I would bring everything back to
But
you
I
for a
feel-
final
I feel like we
decision.
sort of carefully considered it on two occasions, and so
Yeah.
could give you conditional
I
approval.
mean, as long as
to-
it's the deed restriction that I sent.
Yes,
And
that's the other thing I was going to
Yeah.
say is, if there's some playing with the words, they can try that, but it may not pass.
Right.
It would come back to the
It's
board.
on the deed.
And the addition was already explained as a third floor bedroom, one bedroom. Is that the plan? The
That-
carriage house, the addition to the carriage house is a bedroom.
It
And
is.
just
They
one
wanna- they
bedroom.
wanna finish up
Yep.
the attic.
Yep.
The board hasn't seen it, but they've heard it in concept.
I think we saw it, I think we saw it.
Did you see
I think
it?
we saw
So
it
if
in
the
prior
board
meeting,
saw
yeah.
it, then as long as it's that same one and we have it
Yeah.
on record, you can be, should work out fine. Probably don't need to come back to a meeting.
Or do we just saw
So
that
the
there is a
picture,
space?
yeah.
Yeah.
Did it show closets, that kind of
I
detail, or
think-
just
I
showed a
think there
big open
was
space?
I think there was a picture of the space, and then there was I don't know if I have that.
Like a proposed
Yeah.
schematic.
Yeah.
It's topical at 8:30.
Okay, so I guess if you have any questions on that, certainly.
Has it been filed yet, Dan? I don't know if it's, maybe it
It was
hasn't.
filed and then.
I denied it?
You denied
Okay,
it,
okay,
they'll have
so-
to refile.
Yeah.
Well, the building commissioner can just bring it back upstairs and I can re-sign it as approved, as long as the deed recording's
Yeah, I just
per.
want to understand the process. So
Yeah.
the deed recording comes first, then the recording.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I can sign it, if the board agrees tonight.
And do we need to give a vote to give Mark that approval?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I would.
So do we have a motion to authorize the agent to approve the plans subject to receipt of the appropriate deed recording for the basement, 2 basement rooms?
And that's
Anything else we
referring
need
to the
to
building
This is for
plans that were
finishing of the
previously,
attic,
Yes.
For a net addition of 1 room, 1 bedroom.
for the building plans previously submitted.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
It was easy.
If I- Thank you very much. If I can indulge you for one more minute
Yeah.
on another project. We're working on 110 Washington Street,
Yeah.
which is another monster house.
Trying to remember the 110.
It was used.
Oh, yes,
It
yeah.
was a large family, they got it set
Oh,
up as
my.
8 bedrooms, but the assessors had it as 8 bedrooms. With six.
I would say submit a floor plan to me first.
And then
Let me look at
Ellen
it.
could pull historic records so we could just see, if that changed over time. 'cause-
We're dealing with this on another subject tonight, where it was a farmhouse, and originally it had a history of different bedroom counts.
Yeah.
And they submitted a floor plan to show what it is today, so, it depends on what it is today versus what it was, and how did it get changed, and how they're finished basement rooms, but I know the house you're talking about, because we were there
Yeah, we were there, yeah.
looking around all day, it seemed like, but, yeah, I would submit the floor plan, show how it
But
looks.
Isn't that different what we just discussed? You wouldn't accept
Well,
the floor- previous floor
that
plan.
wasn't a campus, but I would submit both, the floor plans to
And the
show what you
assessor's
have,
record.
and the assessors
And
record.
Ellen
I'll
will
get the
pull, it's
assessor's records and I'll
whether those things converge or not, or,
Okay.
Might be some deed recordings required for that property.
Oh, no.
What was that property? 110?
I don't think we've heard anything
110
official.
Washington.
110 Washington.
110 Washington.
Good night.
Thank you.
Because it wasn't on the agenda, so I'm just going to say. it when
110
we discuss
Washington. It's hard to review something you haven't
Oh.
seen yet. Sure, you're leaving awful mad over there.
Have a good night, guys.
He's a good guy, he's a good guy.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
well, at least we came out with the same calculation
That
as
would have
last
been
time, so that was
awkward.
good. That was good.
it. This one.
It was
I
never easy.
remembered as I'm writing down the numbers, I'm like, I did this once before.
I'm gonna keep my piece of paper with my numbers on it. just-
Never easy.
Okay.
It was way over there. I didn't think.
This was a campus, it was a little different from a single house.
All right, just so we can plan a little bit, are you here for 41 North Main? Okay, are you also? 91? Oh,
I thought you said 81, I'm
Agent's
saying, I don't have
business.
81.
okay.
Joe,
Should we do
Let's
that?
do
I saw you
81, because
outside.
41 will be a
91.
little longer.
can I ask to review 91 at
Yep.
this
Yes.
present
Yep.
time?
Yep.
That'd be good.
We're gonna review a floor plan. So the board knows, Joe submitted a floor plan to me because we have a variety of assessors records on this property. We had assessors records showing a 5-bedroom home. Let me see if I can get around it, get
I
Joe.
think it was always 4 bedrooms, but at one point they said it was 10 rooms.
Yeah, they
Most
bounced,
recently.
it bounced, yeah, it bounced around a little bit, but, so,
I'm not-
we have the assessors records here.
I usually am, but not
And I'll show you the floor plan, which was.
Raising, so
submitted
maybe-
today. You did a good job.
I'm not an artist, but I
You
try.
actually did okay, and you actually over-assessed. But this is the room as, the house as it looks right now, and I put the numbers on the side
Okay.
to show that the second floor, you don't have any finished basement or attic rooms, do you?
No, the
Okay.
basement's just a fieldstone
So
foundation.
this is an older farmhouse, I presume it was a farm, or estate. And it was assessed differently. Up to today's date, it was assessed as 9 rooms, which I see from the floor plans, and 4 bedrooms. It was assessed a few years back in 2000, as a 10-room, 4-bedroom. I think what the previous owner 18 years ago, I'm not sure what they saw, but maybe something was heated, or as Dan said a minute ago, they used to call hallways rooms, I guess, too, I don't know. But
Like a
I
foyer.
wanted to present the process of the room come to the board, because the engineer designed for 4 bedrooms, and I want to make sure it is a 4-bedroom and not
Okay.
a 5-bedroom.
Yeah.
And I feel satisfied it is a 4-bedroom, as shown today with the septic.
I think we have seen things where, right, where people would call a room in the past, we would call
Yeah.
kind of your entry.
Right.
Well,
So,
even in 92, the assessor called it 7 rooms, 4 bedrooms. So it depends on who's assessing too, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and how the
Okay.
assessments work each year. It could have been variable ways.
But it sounds
to
like
review. But
room
I'm
count applying current standards
Yeah.
is consistent with 4-bedroom.
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
the way I see
What's
it.
that say,
general
foyer, foyer/family room?
Yeah.
Yeah, I counted that one too. So that was this one down here is the 5th. So it has 9
Okay.
rooms total, 5 on the first, 4 on the second. And the septic plan,
And from your perspective, also
That
4-bedroom.
matches?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
That's when it was listed, we bought it out, it was a foreclosure, but when it was listed before that, and it was listed as
A 4, okay. So it sounds like everybody's in agreement, it looks like a
Okay.
4.
the
So far, so good.
septic plans have been reviewed, but there were deficiencies on it, and Paul Truax, who's the engineer now for GLM, Rob Truax's brother, actually, didn't address the well the way it should have been addressed, but on the second plan, it was addressed properly. What they have to do is they're proposing both a new well and a replacement a replacement well and a replacement septic system. And with that said, they had to
Did it
make-
fail Title V, or?
They
think it was a
tested in
formal
season,
test.
so you don't have to disclose it one way or the other, but because they tested in season, they didn't have to disclose that.
Okay.
You know, I think they wanna upgrade it, and you're probably gonna work on the house and maybe,
And
yeah.
sell it at some
Yeah,
point,
that's-
so
I
I
think it's
figured
more
it's
real
better to
estate.
probably have a, new system.
Compliant,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's why I questioned the 10 rooms originally, but, and it's been resolved, but this was the statement that we needed. This is the basic layout of the land, sorry, I got the plan dirty. But it now addresses septic systems. I couldn't see, they did it with a radius on this new well, but I couldn't see what was in this boilerplate here.
Oh.
And, you know, if you have
Oh,
a
I
radius
see.
and there's nothing to see on the other side of radius, I don't know if there's a house there, a well
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So I told the engineer, Rob, his brother, to have the engineer put a definitive statement here that there are no septic systems 175 feet uphill, it should, septic systems 175 feet uphill from the well, to protect the well from anything flowing down to it. It was great.
Or 150
150
feet downhill
And the
from,
soil was terrific, 2
Oh.
per inch rate. You know, they tested right in here. It'd be nice to see some sand in town now and then. And they're putting the septic system right in here. The old well is very close. I had it marked out on this plan, but.
so whose well is this? Is that an abutters?
Yeah, I don't know, this one right here is 93
Okay,
North Main.
Okay.
Yeah, you can come over and help me here.
so that's the abutters well.
Yeah, that's-
And this is your proposed new well?
And there's the old well there, and that well is too close to where they're proposing the septic system. So with that said, they need to do a few things. One is drill the new well, prove potability to it by quantity and quality. That would be, there's a method to do this, and then if that meets both our quality and quantity regulations, then they can have a licensed well driller abandon this old
Decommission,
well.
yeah.
And then they can install the septic system, and it
Okay,
continues on. Is this gonna be a tear down, do you know?
No, the house is too big to.
No, sometimes you can. You
Yeah.
gotta make sure you do it in 3 years of your certificate of compliance. So I'm gonna recommend approval of the plan, conditional to the new well drilled, improved potability of water through quality and quantity testing. Then second, the old well properly abandoned by a licensed well driller. and then the approval of the septic to be installed. I'm approving it as a septic plan for approval, but not for installation, based on the
'Cause
various
it's the
steps they have.
sequencing,
Yes. Sequencing.
And just refresh the only thing I can't remember is the sort of well distance to well distance for the proposed well.
75 feet.
Okay, so this,
And
the
what is
radiuses are
that?
for the
That's-
septic
well, I can
setbacks.
get my ruler. It's
Yeah.
about
150 is
100.
there, so.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, 150 from here to here, so it's probably 125. You got the 75 there.
Perfect.
And that's a very good point, because you don't want to be drawing on someone else's.
Yeah.
Right.
Perfect.
Well, you said quantity and quality, so,
Yeah.
go
Okay.
deep.
So do we
That's my
have
advice.
a motion to have Mark approve the plans conditional to the conditions he noted?
So moved?
Second,
And Ellen, did you get all the things that he said as
Yes,
the
yeah.
conditions? Great.
You've seen this type of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's the normal for,
yeah. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
is there any deed,
Good night.
is there,
Question, I guess, if.
Oh, there's always.
Any deed- any
If for
deed
some reason
restrictions?
the, that well location or whatever, it doesn't turn out to be a good well location, then we would just
Come back with another
come
engineered
back
plan,
another.
and then I'll bring it to the Board of Health.
Any deed
And then-
restrictions needed?
No.
Okay.
They,
IA
wait a minute,
technology,
what am I saying?
nothing?
Yes, they
Yeah.
didn't design for a garbage grinder.
Oh.
They need that
Okay.
deed restriction, so that was the other condition.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
we're going to amend our prior vote with the garbage grinder deed restriction.
Which I
Thank you,
have.
Ellen. All those in favor of that?
Aye.
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 That's the problem, when I review a plan and then I have a newer plan, I'm looking for certain things.
No, and there was so much just
Yeah.
getting ready before the septic. I
So
wasn't
it does
thinking of
require
the
the deed
septic.
recording of the garbage grinder. I wrote that garbage grinder deed recording, so thank you.
And so
Good catch.
as it sits
Back to
right
that.
now, there's no problem with occupying the house or using it? Because I don't know where the current well, that might be too close to the septic system.
I think you can have all kinds of stuff that you walk in, like, we wouldn't approve it now, but you can occupy it now.
Yeah. Even if it failed, you could occupy for 2 years, as long as you don't have any breakout from the sewage or backing into your house, so. But you
Or
didn't, I
someone
don't believe you have a
else's.
Title V, but if you did, you have 2 years to replace,
Okay,
if it failed.
all right.
So you got a lot of options.
Yeah.
And we'll get them stamped, and you'll get a copy of one of the plans.
All right, thank you.
Sounds good.
And before you release the plans, does the deed recording have to come in
Yeah, we
first?
don't release
Even
the-
though it's doing
Thank you.
stepwise?
Maya attached to it.
Yes,
You don't
Maya.
get the plans until you get the deed recording, evidence it was documented, and the deed recording boilerplate, Ellen can get to you.
That's just
Yeah.
about a garbage grinder, that's.
Yeah. I'll email that to you tomorrow,
Okay, great.
okay?
It's just so future owners know that they should not be installing a garbage grinder in the future, because, and they're never a good idea for a septic system anyway, so it's a blessing in disguise.
Good night.
It won't
Thank
be
you.
till tomorrow afternoon, though.
Okay, that's all
I'm out
right.
of
Yeah, I
the
think
office.
probably with the holiday, it'd be hard to get,
Yeah. Oh.
bids on the
Yeah.
system anyway.
Yeah.
With
There's
the
a process.
You might not be able to see it after Monday if we get all the snow they're predicting. I don't know, we'll see. Mike.
Sounds good. All right, 41 North Main
Okay, so 41 North Main,
in 15 minutes.
or less. We have to see how advisory is doing. We're scheduled for 8:30 with them, but I don't know.
I thought it said 9 o'clock on the
I thought it
schedule.
said 9.
It's at 9 on our agenda,
Oh,
but
8:30
their
on their agenda.
agenda,
Their agenda says
says
8:30.
8:30.
Revised, yes, they had very efficient timing for folks. So anyway, I was chatting with someone from advisory and some other people who just kind of wanted to know what does the Board of Health think about 41 North Main, and what should be, what things would we want to weigh in on? And so I tried to write down
I wrote down a bunch of things.
some notes, and so I haven't finished. I thought I would, but I had too much stuff come up work-wise this week. So I was thinking of more, even though it would not necessarily be in our jurisdiction, because if they go the public water supply and wastewater treatment plant route, it'll be DEP decisions, but as a town, if we're going to be participating in this, I think there are things that we would need to understand to do it right. So that's the perspective I took on it. And so I tried to, I have a couple pages of like lists of details that one would need to know about to do those systems and be ready for the hiccups that might occur in the future or where you're going. But the first one, to me, that's most important for both sides is to understand how much water are you going to need for whatever the
Well,
developments are that are
Right,
proposed.
it's capacity for both the supply and the discharge.
Yeah.
And so, because the whole point would be that, and frankly, when you're looking at this as a development that the town would have a benefit from, for the town, it's really all about the commercial development piece.
Right.
And it's literally silent on any of the, so it said like
So if
a
you-
market and a restaurant and, which are
Yeah.
more
Right.
water-intensive types of things, and they're gonna have more discharge. So this lacks any specifics whatsoever on, so what would their portion be? Would it be a 50-50 split? What kind of capacity are we talking about? What kind
And I
of
think also, like,
discharge?
for the water district, if you're then saying we're adding a ton of 1 acre residential up Honey
Right.
Lane,
Yeah.
you're now saying, oh, well, they're all in the wastewater district, so
No.
properties are previously unbuildable,
Well,
if we're saying we wanna
limiting
add-
it to specifically the
Existing.
only things proposed in this, on that property. That's what it needs to, it references just that property, so I would think before we would entertain this, it would have to be, this is limited to use of up to X amount or X percent of the wastewater treatment
Right.
plant, specifically and limited to the assisted living, the market, and the restaurant on that
And I
property.
also think if
So-
you make a wastewater treatment district, it's also saying who's able to participate in that district. I think one of my questions is, can you restrict? to
No
re-
residential, yeah.
Well, so either like non-residential or existing residential, because if you're saying the upside to the abutters is that you now have an opportunity to tend to this if your system fails and you're so inclined, I'd want them to have access to it should they choose to seek it, but I wouldn't want to say that we're using this
Any
as a
new,
strategy.
for any new.
And for me, that's less of a Board of Health question, it's more of for the
Planning
stated
board,
goal. Like, I
zones.
can't imagine that we'll build the series of 1 acre lot houses that will have the goal of reducing the tax burden or the tax deficits that we face from.
More housing has not historically
Right,
reduced our
and
taxes, but
particularly The housing that you have on
It
the
might
lot
at some
doesn't
point.
Anywhere in
cross the
history.
price point that is likely to, like, if you sort of.
So, kind of springboarding from that general point of, how much is that one thing going to use? Are they ready over there for us?
Yes, can I ask, would you
Yeah.
rather wait a week, or do you want to
Uh,
have one person order?
So, sounds like they've been going pretty quickly, so this may be,
They're just about done, I think, so.
okay. Do we try to go next door and do a 10-minute budget discussion?
Sure.
Oh,
Okay, let me just say this thing, because I
Okay.
will probably forget before we come back. The other, we'll be there in just a
I guess,
minute or so.
Is Ellen gonna need to go there? And so,
Should we take
I
a
don't know.
recess?
I
then
think
we
it-
don't have a quorum.
Well, we'll
She
have- well,
posted
no,
it,
but,
so it's okay.
No, but, no,
Everybody.
you guys could go, but if Ellen's not here, how much benefit is what we're talking about? Because it won't be in the minutes.
Right.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I would take a 10-minute recess and
Hiatus.
say.
Oh, from our
Can all
meeting?
go.
Yeah, no, we could all go. I just want, so, there's how much they would have, and you could say it's limited to what they're proposing now for that property, which still isn't fleshed out, so.
Right, no,
assuming
no,
it
it's
was
not
fleshed out.
quantified.
But then it begs the question of who comes next? So you're building extra capacity presumably in this wastewater treatment plant, right?
I thought they were
'Cause that
saying
was the
it was
idea.
for the other people, like we were saying, they haven't provided, like, here's the district, but they were alluding to existing businesses
again,
in
you're like,
town
know your
center.
revenue.
Again, no specifics, but
Right,
that's what.
and here's my concern, is there may be businesses in town who could change their use by having a wastewater treatment plant accessible, or do something else, who knows?
Right. But again,
Dry
if it's a-
goods to restaurants, but the question becomes, you've built a wastewater treatment plant, it has a certain capacity, let's say they use 50%.
Right.
To really operate that thing, you wanna use it to
Maximize,
its
yeah.
design capacity.
Right.
So, who's ready next? And is it by
Pine
who's
Hill.
ready first? No, but
Right.
if it's the property's up Hunting Lane, then you have lost
No,
what
no,
the
but that's
town
what
is
I,
thinking
no, 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 I'm
is
saying
the
that,
value.
that absolutely has to be
Right,
Cause I think,
restricted, like.
okay, so
it
it's
has
not
to
just
be.
saying
Oh, no, no, no.
agreement on what they have
Yeah, yeah,
now,
yeah.
it's
No, I
a
agree.
a
but it-
restriction to.
right, and I think from the Board of Health standpoint, I think what we're communicating is, with experience in approving and looking at septic designs, what we would say is it's unlikely that the property could currently be developed in the absence of a wastewater treatment plant based on the high groundwater. I think we've typically seen going up Hunting Lane, like we don't know because we don't have values from that property. And so I think my key take home for the select board to understand is you are opening up substantial residential development that you should manage if that's not part of your strategy, because right now, much of that is not developable in that fashion. Based on the,
So maybe we should go if they're ready,
Yeah.
and then come back, because just that whole integration of, is it water supply, is it wastewater, what are the
But we have the
burdens, and then
136 South Main Street
operationally-
at 840, so.
I know, so
Okay.
we don't have much time to talk to
So why
them,
don't-
but
It's not here right now.
yeah. So
they've
let-
been doing things quickly next door, I guess, so.
all right, let's go over. So we're about to take a
Want me to
recess.
stay here or go next door? It doesn't matter.
Okay, so,
All those in favor of taking a recess since we have to?
okay, we had a motion, I'll second, and all those in favor.
Second, I.
But then you need to go into session over there, reconvene there.
Okay, so we are back from our budget meeting with advisory, and now we have an appointment to talk about 136 South Main. Okay, and actually, we do need the agent, because he is the fountain of knowledge. Okay. Okay, Mark, so we're going to talk about 136 South Main,
Okay.
and
So we received a request as it relates on January 4th, related to the review process we've been going through for the property at 136 South Main Street. The request was, I believe Naz is here, hi Naz, to determine if, with the reclassification of the septic system for the purpose of an additional bedroom, could it also be considered a 7-bedroom property versus 6? A question, okay, a question, thank you.
okay, and so, I know there's one issue about changing the tank size.
Yeah, so the
I thought we-
email from the guys, I've already hired him, he's preparing plans, which I have to submit 5 copies, which I'm gonna do, he's gonna do actually, in a week. And it cannot be done until May. The people who do it, they don't work in May. So I will come to the second point, but the first was, I was just curious that what would be the legal status of the house in terms of bedrooms or things like that, like.
Right, could you-
We'd have to do a review to determine if they got an extra bedroom. I believe from the previous owner, not you, they built 2 septic systems. One was a repair to the original system, so we'd have to pull that data. But I did look at it 2 months ago, and I don't believe they received any waivers, but the concern would be it was designed back then for, I can look, I think it was 5 or 6 bedrooms, and the well, 5 bedrooms. So the well's the concern too. It's, when you're reclassifying the property, there's some concern too about the surge that you might need for a 7-bedroom, 4-bathroom home. We're looking at regulations right now to address that, because if they're all being used, say, in the morning and at night, there's some surge issues that have come to light as it relates to wells. So I would say we want to look at it carefully to make sure the reclassification doesn't cause someone else somewhere.
Again, I'm not looking for reclassification, it was just a
Okay.
question out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess the question.
I'm not asking, I'm not
Yeah,
asking.
going-
You're not
That's
proposing a request, you're saying, I'd love to understand.
Curious, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
but
is going to be the legal status once,
So I think-
5-bedroom, you guys already counted a 6-bedroom by the room count. That's the letter you guys have
And-
sent.
Right, 'cause there was
and then I
13,
think that
So I was just
it would go
curious
to the
about
design flow for the last,
what is- what
because
is
there was a
the-
design flow for the system that's in place now,
Yes.
right?
yes.
And so I think we would say, based on that design flow, if there weren't variances granted to arrive at the room count, that design flow is built. So if we assume there are no variances in building the replacement system, and the replacement system had a design flow that would fit, whatever, like my recollection, this was like,
Five bedrooms.
It was 5, but it.
But it was with a
but
garbage
the
grinder?
engineer-
Right.
Right.
But I think my recollection from Claire,
You're right.
like we had that clarification memo from a few years ago, is that the design flow built or reflected in that plan would then be the basis that you applied for it. So it's not how many feet of this or that it is, it's what was on that piece of paper when we approved it.
That is
And I
correct.
think that would be the flow. And if you
Septic
said,
disposal construction permit was for 5 bedrooms.
but I think, wasn't it, it was for 5 bedrooms, but my recollection of the memo is that
Specified.
it was the gallon count that you would then apply to the number of bedrooms.
Correct, it was designed for a garbage grinder.
Right,
And
so if you
that
said
met
that
the
we-
codes back then. So this is the quirk in the whole situation, is the regulations changed. When the regulations changed to allow people to consider a deed recording for a garbage
Right.
grinder, so instead of having 165 gallons per day per bedroom, it came to
To
110.
yeah.
And so I think that if you
People
said this
were-
is, but, so I think the point I'm trying to make is, it's not Paul's assertions of this is how long it was, this is the leaching area. I think the rule for Sherborn, if I remembered, or the guidance from the state, was we would go to look at the permit for the installed system, the design flow that was listed for that, not what Paul's calculating today, but what was completed when the system was installed, and then we would apply that with or without the deed restriction for the bedroom counts.
I agree.
And so I think that kind of becomes the salient question of if that is X over 110 is how many bedrooms the septic would support, then I think that becomes that question. And then there's a separate question of the sort of longer term, like, are there regulations now or in the future where the water supply would drive changes in the bedroom count? But I think we're really just thinking about, what does this mean for my septic system? I think would be,
Well, I think what you're asking is the current well providing enough water as would be required by a
But I don't
seven-bedroom
think
home
that's what you're
today?
asking.
No,
I
it's
think-
not the future. No, but
No, but I think he's not, like, he's really just saying, from my septic, I want to understand what my septic means. I'm not saying my house is a 7-bedroom house, nor am I
yeah,
asking
but
the board.
we're counting the rooms and we're squeezed.
Maybe it's best I read the
There.
email. It says, "Thank you for the detailed info." Ellen put a nice letter with everything in it, and that was back on January 3rd, and Naz came back just to ask, I have one question. It was a question. After excluding the garbage disposal from the deed and making the required amendments to the septic system, is the house going to be classified as a 7-bedroom and 6-bedroom? I think it may,
But I
or 6.
but I think we're not classifying
And
the house.
6-bathroom.
Like, I think what we're classifying is a septic system is able to support a house of this many bedrooms.
I
think
agree.
a building plan would determine how many bedrooms this house has. As long as the building plan was less than the septic plan, that's fine. But I think the question of what does a garbage grinder restriction get us, it's not speaking to the status of the house or its building permit, it's speaking to the status of the septic system.
Correct.
Does that seem accurate?
Yeah, when you go around it that way, yes.
Yeah. Does that answer the question that you had?
Yeah, fine.
So on the question, and I can't remember off the top of my head the counts when we looked at the plans before, but I know that we were wrestling with whether the room, whether the upstairs of the garage would be built out or not, and how the room on the first floor there would look in terms of looking like a master bedroom suite with a room with an attached bathroom. So that's part of what we're wrestling with, and so what the point of this, could it support 7, would help with those issues for the further finishing off of space on your property. So that is important for that. And I believe the 7 would comfortably cover the guest
Close.
house, if we called the first floor, even called it a bedroom, I think
It would
that the
be-
Yeah, you're
seven
at 6, so you would add
took
to
care
1
of
and 7.
that. So that's important for that reason, because it gives you much more flexibility.
And the other
So,
point.
For the water supply, would it be an issue of going back to the original well pump test, just to see what
They
the,
were getting for a
yeah.
flow rate.
yeah,
It would be advisable to do that. We'd have to get back to the old records to see what they were getting on the well.
mhm.
Because it may have limited capacity for the increased demand.
Right. And that house, could that be met with a storage tank?
And that's
It had to be.
another opportunity that actually could help.
I guess what I'm,
Why?
I don't disagree with any of it. I guess
Why are
what
we
I'm
talking
struggling
about
with
that?
is like, what's the basis for us? Like I think the question we're being asked for is this approved? We don't have anything that says, here's how, like if you have septic capacity, there's typically not a question for the board unless we sort of go through the algorithm. My recollection was this didn't hit that. I think the question of whether you'll have enough potable water is a sort of separate one, but I don't remember seeing anything that said
No,
if you're doing a
yeah.
renovation. So I think these are all good things to think about for you, should you decide to have many more people living in your home, or for whoever buys your home in the future. But I just don't know that we have a basis to say,
We
here's the
don't
new
at this
requirement.
point.
I think this is more informational, but it doesn't drive our room count or our septic system, does it?
Yeah, that is correct. We don't have a basis right now. These are discussions with the other health agent that I'm having. She's reviewing some well regulations, and just yesterday, we reviewed the demand issue within
Right.
the hours of demand.
But I think that
But
for
it's
us, like,
separate from
I
this
think
whole
that, right, I
issue.
think that would inform the next property that had the same
That's true.
circumstance, because for in our existing regs, I don't think we have anything.
I think, and I believe,
Although,
well,
it's a little fuzzy. I can believe it hasn't been mapped out in this way
Yeah.
for ever-increasing size of homes, but when we permit the wells initially, they have to have a
They have to
flow
have a
that's
flow.
going to
But
match the size of the
But right
That's
house.
now-
not what-
But right now, we're not actually changing the
that's-
flow. Like,
yeah.
we're saying, you need to build a system that can handle this many gallons of
Yeah.
effluent.
Right.
And we can't say, like, yes, we were saying, well, no, that was because there was a nitrogen load, because the garbage grinder, and that was the rationale. But the reality is, we said, this septic system can handle this much effluent. We can't then say that it
No,
couldn't.
but if you reclassified, permit the house to be reclassified as a
But we're
seven-bedroom,
not
you
doing
added
that.
two bedrooms.
But if we said that you could build a system that could take 1,100 gallons of water out, we can't say, oh, no, but we never really thought you'd have 1,100 gallons of water out. We thought you would have like 700 gallons of water out. Now we really think you'll have 1,100 gallons of water out. I don't think we can shift that way.
So I guess, and one last question.
Yeah.
I'm confused. So if someone did change a house from 5 bedrooms to 7 bedrooms, and
Didn't need a
their
variance from us.
flow for providing is adequate, I mean, do they have to come to us to technically increase the GPM of their well?
we, not for the well, only
Okay,
for the
that's what I
review of the
thought.
septic.
Okay,
No,
that's what I
I'm just
thought.
talking,
Well, that's why I got confused.
But
General,
I guess
this
my
is
other
general.
question is, so for the system we have right now, how does the tank fit in? Does the tank fit in at all for the bedroom count? Like, is
not the present tank.
But like, if you say I'm putting a new tank in, does that
And
require
that's-
any variance that we have to think about in terms of a
No,
variance for?
no, there's no variance, because they're meeting the requirement for a 7-bedroom.
So-
The one issue I should mention, though, is that when we reclassify systems that have had a garbage grinder, it has had a different use than if it didn't have a garbage grinder. And so that's why I think the board did the right thing when it required the deed recording, the removal of the garbage grinder, and it explains what the approval was for.
Okay. So.
I think it was appropriate.
Okay, so
So I think there's nothing for us to vote on, because I think your question was more a question mark question. So I don't think we're calling your house, like, I think what we're answering tonight is, I think we'd say,
Addition.
but do we have the design flow? Because isn't that what we need for the design flow?
The design flow was 5 times 165, which is a.
yeah, so it meets the 110 without the garbage grinder.
Yeah.
That's what we went through last time.
Yeah, it's on this.
We already, we did this math.
So some of the other
What was the
issues,
design flow, Mark?
5 times 165,
Which is
which is 825.
825.
Jumped to it before I could.
okay, and so there's still going to be, so are the final house plans already submitted? Have you Or are those yet to come?
They have not shown up.
Okay, so that's yet to come.
Building
So,
permit.
Which,
Permit
there's one
provisions.
item that, because it's active with the board, I would bring to the board's attention.
okay.
They are preparing the septic system plan.
That,
Is doing-
sure, but
Is
there,
there anything else I need to-
yeah, when you go to do your addition,
What if they
and,
do
and,
addition?
and help.
Renovation.
Renovation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not being careful with my words, but when they go to do the renovation in the barn, you are planning to submit a building plan, or have
You
you?
have to,
I have submitted something.
a building permit, don't you have to get a permit?
Yeah, you have to get a building permit through the building department. And have you,
That's not us.
that's not us. Have you submitted a building plan yet?
Yes, the whole thing, yes.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so we'll pull that back to the board.
And that's how I got it.
And that's, probably was, I rejected it, and it's, again, we deal with a few, so I apologize, I don't remember that. That would come back to the board for review with your septic tank plan.
Okay, so when the engineer
Yeah.
prepares the septic tank plans, I submit it.
Yep.
We'll take it from there.
And then from there, we'll go over what's next,
And
what
just
gets
one
approved, when
question.
and where.
Since the guys won't do the work until May, he thinks, end of April or May, is there any provision where I can get the inside work done conditionally?
No, and we
Because then
don't,
people just say, oh, yeah, no. I'm
just
not
so you
doing
know,
it."
we do not restrict work in the winter. Someone's putting a septic system in right down the street from you on Woodland.
But I think.
You said it
so
was your
question is, you're
engineers
gonna-
couldn't do the work.
or
Well,
your
the
install-
Engineer
installers,
said that he doesn't advise me to do the work.
Right.
the work done.
but it
But
can
so-
be done,
But I
is
think,
what I'm
I
saying.
think that the question you're asking though is, can I do my inside work before my septic work? And I would say from the,
Well, I mean, there is some permit process I go through.
Yeah, you would have to meet all the conditions in the letter and put the septic tank in before the, or we could do that at the time of the septic tank approval. We could make a schedule.
Right.
If the tank's in and the as-bilt's on the way, then we could look at the building permit.
but I
It can
think-
be a
but I think
schedule.
I think it would need to be tank is in the ground as opposed to planned for in the ground before the building permit would be released.
Usually that's what we do. We have the septic system in place before the approval.
That's what,
Right.
yes, so you guys are all saying the same thing.
Right, so I think that
It's
from
like-
I think you are limited for the inside work until May, based on the septic. work.
Unless
Unless you get
they
somebody else
they
who
can do
does.
it faster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Unless you can hire someone that'll do it now,
And
which there are
the
people out
Give
there.
tank is
Get their plan
easier,
first.
I think, than the
Yes.
leaching fields, correct?
What's
In
that?
the winter, a tank is easier than the leaching
Yeah, a
field.
tank,
'cause
you just dig a
don't
hole.
have as much change
Yeah.
in,
People do that all the, like,
Levels
people are
of
pulling
things, so-
tanks and installing tanks in the winter all the time.
They have
so.
excavators that can dig through the frost.
and then I'll just make a plug that if you can manage it, because part of this is also just to get work that was done, I guess, before you got to the house, where they put in the bathroom, but we don't quite know what it's connected to, is
No,
either
it is
you-
connected to the main tank. There is a report when we bought the house, it was conditional upon that. So a whole
Oh,
report
okay.
was submitted. I don't know where it goes, but
Well,
it was given to somebody.
What's, this, I'm gonna backtrack, I'm looking at the
Town smart
minutes.
septic system, that it's all properly connected, and it's not being illegally disposed of.
uh,
The whole thing was submitted.
What
okay.
happened, a Title V inspector found out that there was plumbing in the, and again, it wasn't Nas that did this work. The previous owner put plumbing into the barn without permission. Also, supposedly, the Title V inspector believes it's tied into the tank, the present tank.
Okay.
We don't know if it was done properly or not, no one ever saw it, never mind the plumbing work as well.
Okay.
And just to backtrack, on October 3rd, I presented to the board a preliminary building application was submitted by you. So to correct what I said, you will need to submit a building application to the building commissioner. And plumbing inspector will need, you can go over that with the building commissioner. What you submitted to us was a preliminary building application, but there's a formal building permit application. Yeah, okay, just to
Okay.
correct what was said earlier.
So do these options still stand if that tie-in is the case? I was just going to make the argument that if you're going to go through the effort of putting in a tank, putting in one larger two-compartment tank would serve your whole property better than adding on one very large tank for just the bathroom in that house. So, personal opinion, I believe it's your choice, but,
The engineer, no, I left the engineer. He came, surveyed the house.
Uh-huh.
He's the one who initially designed the septic system and leaching fields. He said, no, that thing is properly connected, I've seen out and I did all that. It's like, no, the
Okay.
easiest thing to do is to go through, replace the sink.
Okay,
Otherwise, you have to do the leaching fields, connect leaching fields.
yeah, okay.
Hook into a tank, so that would be.
Yeah, no, that
more
would,
involved.
and it
And
would
the-
serve your system better and help with its life to have the 2-compartment tank in there.
But we will need to see that building pipe to make sure there's no angles, because it's carrying solid. So the engineer, it sounds like he uncover that pipe from the barn to the tank?
Yes, it did.
He should have called me when he did that, so I could see it. It's gonna have to be done from my view, but they usually have to do work at the time of the
I think
tank.
that would have been submitted, I saw it.
Yeah, well,
Don Scott,
No, no.
septic system, they
No.
did that.
that was,
I don't know who it
yeah.
submitted to, but
No, but I
That's
think
the
Mark-
Title
but I
V
think- but I think-
inspector.
But I
Yeah,
think
it
Mark's
has to
point
be
is I have
written-
to see it with my eyes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He always has to go and inspect, are things at the right angle for draining and all that.
And that'll
so-
all happen when the tank goes in, which,
Yeah.
you got the machinery there. It's not difficult to do that at that time. It's easy.
I just want to be mindful of time because we're at
Yes.
9:30, so it sounds like we've answered your question, we've established the next
Okay.
steps.
That's it, thank you.
Have a good night now.
Thank you, Naz.
Good night.
All right, so now all we have is the easy topic.
42 North.
Thank you for your help.
All right. Actually, it sounds like, I know they wanted comments by literally several days ago, but Ellen informed them that our meeting wasn't until tonight. And it sounds like they're having a meeting tomorrow, another one at the end of the month. So we may have, and if it's going to go before town meeting, we'll have more time for comments. But, okay, so we had, if we'll go through kind of quickly, definition of what kind of services the project is looking for.
So should we just type up some comments and
I've
get them
got
to Ellen?
a couple of pages, yeah, now.
Well,
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
Do we want, just,
But I think
well, the
we-
question is, if we're trying to get it to them before our next meeting,
which is,
then either we
February
discuss
6th.
some stuff now, or,
And I think our next meeting will be after both their meetings.
February 6th.
yeah,
Because I think they're tomorrow and the 31st, right?
or two of us could work together, or.
yeah, I mean, mine are pretty, I think I could write them up very short and sweet.
If you want me to, I could read through mine. These are all rough, and I haven't ordered them really so well. But then, if that gives you some idea of like polls. And I haven't gotten to what would be a logical flow for someone who doesn't do this all the time. So, flow, no pun intended. Okay, so, I'll just breeze through. So we talked about, right, defining what the situation is first so that the town understands what percent of whatever infrastructure we do would be used by this project. What kind of demands that places on the both groundwater quantity and quality, either through the withdrawal or through the discharge of contaminants, and how that's affecting within the watershed. I don't know whether Mass DEP would be able to offer any help on that. We don't have a well-defined watershed. We don't have well-defined aquifers. That probably makes it harder. What are the duties that would be associated with a public water supply and a wastewater treatment plant, those unexpected costs and situations that folks should be ready for? What are the issues about if the town owns it, town sets the standards for what people can discharge in terms of wastewaters, and that goes back to the pharmaceuticals issue, even though they said no problem, it'll take care of pharmaceuticals, but that's not the experience out there. And I guess I feel that the situation is different here than something like the MWRA, which just has enormous volume and dilution and kind of aggregating of things, and then releasing it to the ocean, which is incredible, massive dilution offered there, and not being consumed directly as drinking water. So I think
But I
we
think
have,
also drinking
we have
water,
a very
like,
different
again,
challenge
I
here.
think there's a piece too where you say the drinking water, if I'm in a butter who's not tied into the system, this effluent is being discharged, I'm bearing the risk, I'm not bearing the benefit. And I think on the financial side, if you say the wastewater district is restricted, as I think would make sense, because it certainly, I mean, again, I think what the plan they listed was like 42,000 gallons, which in the drawn plan was like, here's the project's 21,000 gallons, here's the
Right.
town's 21,000 gallons.
50/50.
You know, like, you go through that pretty quick.
Well, right now, the downtown, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, from the downtown water study that I participated in, I believe it was 30,000 gallons for the
year was that?
downtown
Right.
area.
And I think
In the
this
last-
project, you know, again, if it's like.
Less than 10 years.
Right. And so
5
I think,
years.
and so I think that's the other question is, I think there's a bunch of legal subtleties about, right now, there's variances. If we say the water district should be restricted to properties that are either the residential existing properties or existing business properties or whatever, but if you then have somebody who says, look, I've got a failed system, you've imposed this, like, is that actually enforceable to say you can't tie into it? If I've got a failed system.
Right.
And you're saying.
That's a, some of this is also legality stuff
Yeah.
that I think that.
But I think it's like, I think that's one of the questions, because I think you could say, like, for us, it's the, you know, arbitrary and capricious, like, you won't grant me this variance. You've got access to the system, but the town has said I can't tie into it, or I've got a $50,000 replacement, and you've said I can't tie into it.
Right.
Well,
Or
it's
that's,
about the flexibility and about, you know, like capacity, flexibility, limitations. Is it just about current use? Guys, I just don't think this is something we can talk about in a short period of time. That's why
No,
I
I
was
don't
saying,
either.
that's why
I
I'm
don't either.
suggesting that maybe.
it's
Yeah.
a huge topic,
Yeah.
and I
Well, so I
I
guess-
barely got started to the
So
intro.
what's the most
so-
efficient way
To consolidate it, to kind of
Yes.
communicate it. So I think we can't have any more than 2 members collaborate on a product, even if Ellen is the compiler, because then it sort of runs into open
Right.
meeting issues.
Right.
I'm happy to attend the select board meetings. I think you guys have more expertise in thinking about the specifics of kind of the concrete volume. Like, I think there's a science here that on the environmental side matters more than the doctor perspective I bring in terms of thinking about big systems and situational risk. I'm certainly happy to attend and participate in the discussions, but if we have 2 people collaborate, I feel like, I don't want to put you on the spot, but like, I feel like you guys have a particular expertise that would be helpful here. Or,
And I guess what I
Yeah.
also think is where the Board of Health, even though we may not have authority over these specific implementations of water, wastewater system, is that we should be looking out for the health of the folks in town.
Yeah.
And so the robustness of whatever plan comes forward is going to be important, and are we jeopardizing water supplies or making it hard, or
yeah.
someone doesn't opt in, and then other projects come along and use up the capacity of the system,
Right.
but then, oops, the giantness of the wastewater treatment plant contaminates the water, nobody can use their well downtown anymore, you know, they
Right.
need to hook up.
And it looked.
That's
Is
what I'm
water
saying about
and
like the
wastewater needed?
flexibility
Yeah, yeah.
and
But I think
looking,
if-
being forward thinking.
The other question I had is, on their plan, they don't list, you know, again, this is the, sort of which plan is the version, but I think that at the last select board meeting, they said, well, there's already septic systems under the ball fields, but I don't see that listed in the plan that they provided. Like, they sort of say, here's the new field, let me see if I can find it. But it was like, here's like leach field 1, here's leach field 2.
Yeah, they had the
But then in the last one,
221,000.
they said, at the last meeting, they said, no, it's not a change of use, because there's already, the septic for Pine Hill is under the ball fields, or something like
They're
that.
pits, and just so you know, they're pits in
Right.
those fields.
But like,
No,
I
but so,
don't.
are
s-
these
but I
are
don't-
in existence or
No,
proposed?
those are
Those are
proposed.
These are proposed.
Those are
Right.
But
attached
again,
to
I feel
the
like we already
treatment
have a
plant.
septic system that's at this point here, then I think it, like, I just don't know what's Pine Hill's effluent, where is that located relative to the plans are here. If we're saying that the Pine Hill effluent is where they're proposing the septic field, that would certainly be a problem.
I don't, yeah.
But so I think like that's,
It's just the plan, the whole plan is incomplete. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's the bottom line. There's so many aspects to this that are omitted.
They're
and
asking
not
for a
dis-
very good deal, so
Yeah.
they're trying.
And
Right.
Could
Karen-
you do
Based-
some research on
Sure.
whatever we know about what's in the field now?
Sure, I can look into
what
that,
Pine Hill's
and
status
And a little
is,
figure or something so
Right.
we could see it.
2 other points I just wanted to let the board know. I mentioned Wayland before, as the discussion was going on about who can tie in first and who may not tie in or doesn't want to pay the fee.
Right.
Wayland would be a good place to check, because they went through all this. The other thing, being here as long as I have, I remember downtown was already to some degree, jeopardized by other concerns related to these water studies they were doing down there. So
In terms of contaminant load?
contaminant levels. So what will a larger volume of, what will happen if there is still a plume in that area if you're discharging more? And you're drawing more on one side and discharging on another. And again, a hydrogeologist would probably have to look back at the data that DEP had when they were testing all the wells, and people still have filters on their wells, to see if that will have any effect. And if so, I think you will have to make sure the branches at DEP are talking to each other, because you're going to have wastewater, public water supply, and then you'd have to go back to the division that was handling the 21E concerns down at that level.
It's on the wayside cleanup site.
But,
I think it was
I hope
petroleum, yeah.
they usually coordinate, don't they?
And volatiles.
Oh, no. So that might be something just to highlight, that you want to make sure I'm asking you because you deal with them, but,
Yeah.
if they don't, they should recognize that larger volumes of water are going into an area of concern that, in the past. I don't know if it's
Right,
still
there
is.
needs to be a study to design any of this stuff. All of these factors would need to be taken into consideration. But there's just none of that discussed or.
And I think
referenced here.
the other piece, to me, for the Board of Health, is that even though those studies would come into play for getting the groundwater discharge permit, that would be the key piece for the wastewater treatment plant, if that's the route that's taken. So you have to do the studies and apply to DEP, but we may want to see more done, especially one on the operation of the plant side, but also recognizing that probably in fairly short order compared to a lot of other locations, someone will be drinking some of that effluent.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't know, I was reading something recently talking about septic systems and people, and a lot of the places that write about this is Wyoming and North Dakota and Minnesota, where wide open spaces and people have to have septic, but we're in the dense northeast
Right.
urban
Right.
corridor, and we keep trying to put more and more stuff on land and expect that to all work. And in other places,
But
they view it as
Right.
you need
But
the
I
land
feel
and the
like that,
space,
like, I
so.
think, like, other stuff we want to communicate to select board, I think what I struggle with is, I don't disagree with that, but I think they'll say this is like, I think that we have valid concerns, that I think as you start to say you can only be so dense, look at
Oh,
the sort
no.
of,
So I guess the
Yeah.
next point is not saying, no, you can't, but you really have to think about how you do it,
Right.
because it's not getting that built in. So one of the people who wrote Title V, Bill Domi, right?
Yes.
I remember sitting in meetings with him where he talked about some of the assumptions that when they were writing Title V, they assumed it wouldn't be paved over a septic system because you were expecting the rainwater to help dilute things and move stuff along. Like, that's not written in Title V anywhere, but those were the background assumptions, and those other assumptions are space and distance and not many, and so
But
we may
I-
want to
I
say.
just feel like we can't be squishy or we won't be heard.
No,
I think
no,
we have
no.
to be like very clear to say, there are pieces of this that are great. I'm glad this is a
Yeah.
wastewater treatment plant and not a cesspit for 110 bedrooms.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm concerned because the things we don't know are what are the impacts of pharmaceuticals for a sort of, again, a point contamination source. If you're saying, this has still been squishy, is it assisted living, is it a dementia unit? I've heard assisted living at 2 meetings, so I think that's what it is now, but again, that's a specificity you'd want in the plan.
Yeah.
Because dementia unit is, you're going from like 6 meds to 25 meds.
So,
You
one
know.
of the things I had is that I think
Good
it's
point.
also the duty of the town is to look ahead and let them know what they need to be planning for, which to me, I can't see any way to have either technically or cost-wise, to deal with the ever-changing mix of composition for pharmaceuticals, and it would be dilute to some degree. That stuff is always easier if it's concentrated to do something with it. So that means them knowing that, oops, you're gonna build a system, we are expecting you fully to be diverting that, and what are your safeguards? Because we don't wanna accept it as a town
Right.
to
Yeah.
try to manage it effectively, because we will not be able to manage
And then
it
what,
effectively.
if the town, I guess I think one of the other areas to communicate is if the town owns the system and the town is now beholden to the state regulations, if the system fails, this isn't something where you could be like, well, we went to town meeting and the town meeting voted no. You're like,
Right.
no, town, you're now on this hook for state regs.
Yeah.
So if the system fails, you're gonna replace it whether you want to or not. you, like, you have to have the contingency funding for that. I think you made the point for the water supply.
Or not
but
just
otherwise-
replace, but you still have
Right.
people
But
generating
if I-
stuff, and if your plant's not working, you've got to start hauling it, you have to have extra
Right.
storage. I mean, it's
And
all
it's not trivial.
manageable,
Right,
but
and
if
see,
you
I
don't think
that-
it
You gotta
through.
think about it,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I
like
think
the
those are the points to
fundamental
highlight to the
deep
select
duty.
board.
Yeah, I mean, the fundamental, I think, misperception is when there's a public water supply that some mysteriously water like comes from the sky, but we don't even have infrastructure to pipe it in from somewhere else, so that if something were to fail, we don't really have a good backup plan. And so
And-
that's really
And
hard
there's been
for
almost,
people to
there's been
comprehend.
nothing
We need to-
communicated about, like, it was just Roger
Yeah.
saying at the meeting, oh yeah, there was a good tap here, and then somebody mentioned farm pond somewhere else. And again, you're like, I think we've had literally nothing on what the plans are for the water supply. The only thing that was proposed for the project was a public water supply on the other side, but then at the last select board meeting, like Roger Demler basically said, oh, they were doing this testing off Morris Road, and it looked promising. But again, you're like, that has been in none of the proposals, so I think you'd say, we literally can't even comment on that, because all we heard is there was some testing that had been done. Okay, that's totally different than the only other things that had previously been discussed.
And it was it was some, and it gave a yield that they thought would support downtown, but it wasn't extended testing,
And what
things
was,
changed.
that was the
and
testing now, or this was testing before?
That was for Morse Road.
But that was the cycle of testing. Like, that wasn't in some past historical water district assessment, that was something they did. to think
It
about.
was related to looking at downtown water options and
Okay.
they sunk a well, so.
Um,
But, anyway, okay, so,
So in terms of concrete steps, I feel like I certainly have my 2 cents. I'm happy to share them at the meeting, because I think they're less,
okay.
like, they're more big picture and less scientifically, experientially based. I guess the question, do you guys feel like you have bandwidth, not necessarily by tomorrow, but to kind of flesh out what you're thinking about to communicate so that Ellen can pass it along without it being a quorum of the board outside of a public meeting?
Can you repeat that?
So,
Pass
so
along
we,
to
so we
Ellen?
can't circulate a document, so if we wanna give Ellen guidance, we have definitely not given Ellen anything she can actually communicate to the select board in our stream of consciousness that we've had here.
Right, right.
So if we wanna communicate something to the select board, it's either Lisa does something, Daryl does something, those are 2 somethings from Board of Health, or you guys can edit it and have 1 something, but you can't have the things that you guys have both put together can't come to me, cause then we're a
Right.
quorum and it's out of
Yeah,
a
I know.
public meeting.
I know.
So I just, how do we wanna get something to select board? What's our plan?
I mean, I already have a few pages of bullets, just kind of
Well, I
things-
mean, if
no
you-
answers, just here are
I don't
things
think we need to
go through,
write
but-
super formal comments. I think we
Yeah.
need talking
Did
points.
they ask us for comments?
They did ask,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
So
so
I
we
would
need to
say,
do
do you
something.
wanna send, Daryl can send through you to me what she has so far.
Or she can send it to you.
Yeah.
Or you can send it to me,
I'll copy you
and I
and
can
Ellen.
take a quick look, and
Okay.
if I have a few things that I've scribbled down that don't appear to be covered, I'll throw them on, and then we can have Ellen submit that
Yeah.
to the select board? Is that, or
Yeah, or we
or
could
can
do
we,
it,
like,
I could send
is
it.
look
that
dubious.
The
legal?
2 of you
You can do
can
anything you want.
Just
email
send it?
You could even
back and
meet,
forth. Yeah.
set
you
up
can-
So
some,
why can't you send us a copy of what you produce after?
I think
I think
after,
once it's
After
produced, you can do
it's
it.
done.
yeah,
information
we can
about it.
CC you on what we send
like-
to the select
Yeah.
board.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
because
I
I'd
think
really
that's-
And
like to.
which would be good, because if you're going to a meeting, it'd be good
Yeah.
for you to have that. like-
Right, but I mean,
Oh,
'cause if
there's
we-
no way I can get that to you.
No,
Yeah,
tomorrow
we
night.
won't make it in time for
No,
this
but I
one,
think-
but
but
we
I
can
think for
make
the
it in.
31st.
We can send it to the select board in advance of the meeting,
Yeah.
CC you, so you guys will have it before the
Right.
meeting, and then,
But we
right,
won't-
that's all,
right.
is that legal?
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's just the 2 of
two
you.
of you.
Yep.
Right,
It's a
And I think-
product that can't be
okay,
discussed.
that's
or-
fine.
So for
Right,
me,
but I think-
after this weekend.
Yeah, and I should be able to be at the select
Easier
board
if you
tomorrow,
wanna
but
be
I
at
won't
your
be on the
district's
31st. So I think,
When is the selectmen's meeting? Every other week or every week?
Every 2 weeks, right?
Every 2 weeks on Thursday?
Well, actually, it's a
Varies.
pretty variable
It
schedule.
varies.
My
We have to
recollection
look.
is it's on the 17th and 31st.
That's
is what
my
they said at
recollection
the
as
last
well.
select board.
Can it be discussed by email after it's sent out, though? That's what you have
I don't think
You
we can
can't
discuss
discuss
it.
it at all.
I think we
No, we're
can
gonna just
see-
provide
we
it
can
as a
see the
CC.
record.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
just
there.
want to protect
But I
you.
think that would then be a public record, but no matter what
Which is fine, because.
Rebecca or I may feel about it, we can't reply to that chain to deliberate.
But you could provide your own.
Feedback to the select board, but I can't do it with you guys.
That's right.
So if we went to the meeting, we could make a comment.
As
Yes,
long as it's 2 of us and not 3 of us.
right, that's okay, I can't make those, so.
Sounds
I'm
lovely.
just interested in going.
No, it was really interesting last time. Not.
I mean,
specific,
is
but
this, how do
interesting.
we know when it's on the agenda? Is it always
You
on the
have to
agenda?
look.
It's
Yeah, it's
listed-
posted just like
Yeah.
ours are.
It's
They have to
posted,
post it, yeah.
yeah, so I checked the agenda yesterday, or this morning, and it was posted on the agenda, but I don't know what time. I think it's like item 4 or 5.
Very often.
Perfect, well, let's
I am
finish, we
not
wanna finish
I'm
strong.
getting really-
Any questions or
I'm really
concerns that we
hangry.
didn't?
We're gonna give this to you right now. We don't want you angry. My wife gets mad at me when she's hungry.
We do more than lip service.
No, we adhere to it, yeah. Yeah. No, we definitely do, it's painful and, yeah.
I was starting to
It was
do 'em, I
really
thought it
hard
was
for the
aggravating.
fields.
No, no.
Came to any of those, but the fields at Sherborn were really hard meetings, and we didn't even have time to like muse on anything outside, and you'd just come in and there'd be new information, and it
Yeah.
was,
It's also
And it
easier now that
changed
the
twice.
board's
Hard.
larger, because now 2 people can talk, where before the board was larger, no 2 people could talk outside of a meeting because it would represent a quorum. So the nice thing is now that we're a 5-member board, 2 people can talk, but 3 people can't talk.
well, we hardly get around to it. It's still hard.
One or two members of
Oh, wait, so, but I didn't review this yet.
another board that
Oh, you did?
circumvented the spirit.
We did?
Yeah,
The guy was out in the
And there's been a lot of that.
Oh, okay. 'Cause
yeah. I want us to finish
That's what
strong,
this
so I think we're
says.
good on 41 North Main, or we have a plan of
Yeah,
action.
for now.
But it says,
And I guess one other question, just because if I were in a butter, I might have it. Once we submit our
Yes, the
comments
reason I
to
did
the
that was, I didn't know if he'd asked
select
for
board, that is then a public
Oh.
record,
He gave us his
and so that would be
Oh, okay.
Now
requestable.
for
If
another.
one wanted
so
to
we
see the
already
list
approved,
of
we already, okay,
points,
okay.
once that's submitted by these guys, that would be requestable, so that you could see these were the comments that were raised by the Board of Health.
Right.
Sounds good.
It's just.
Okay, and
So just
one more
keep it
thing
like
on that.
this.
To me, an endpoint of this is that the town, again, is gonna potentially own one or the other of these systems, or both. And there is room for making our own provisions of how we want that to go. So even though it's DEP regulated to some degree, as owners, operators, we have a duty to make sure they really perform the way we want them to. So,
Right.
there is
Like, the
that.
town is on the hook
Oh,
to
yeah.
satisfy the state,
Yeah.
and that's
Right.
not trivial.
Right.
So, okay, great. So we have permit renewals, and then payroll and signing, so, okay. Let's see. I'll do the 3 sodium postings together. And I assume these are all renewals? Yes.
Bye,
Okay,
have a good
great.
night.
How's everything going
Night.
up there, okay, Claude? Everything okay up your way? With the septic?
So far, yeah.
Good, no more alarms,
Bubbles out of the ground all the time, but
please, please. Claude.
It'd be nice if it just really shot up high in
Have a
the
good
sky,
night.
though. But, okay, so do we have a motion to renew the food establishment permits for 2019, conditional to sodium postings for St. Teresa's Parish, St. Teresa's,
Sunday.
Walgreens, and Pilgrim
Pilgrim
Church.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have a motion to renew the food establishment permit for 2019 for Sunshine Farm?
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Are all of the disposal works installers who have applied in good standing and/or we have experience with them, or they've been checked out?
Yes,
Okay.
No, they're all renewals.
All shenanigans.
in good standing.
Oh, yes, renewals, sorry, I missed that, okay. Do we have a motion to renew the disposal works installer permits for 2019 for the four companies listed, DJ Morris, Northborough Septic, Big Septic, and Mayo Construction?
So moved?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so agenda items for next time? Let's have 41 North Main on, just in case we have follow-up from
Yeah.
whatever happens
So the two
between
select
now
board
and
meetings.
then.
Yeah.
Wait, oh, okay, wait a minute. I'm still doing disposal works.
Oh, okay.
41 North Main.
41 North Main, yeah.
I want to do, under chair also, regulation
Yeah, I was gonna say.
updates. I have some revisions.
Do we want to have an update about whatever is arrived at by the personnel board? Is that something?
Yeah, let's keep that on, hoping it happens.
Okay, status of person. Yeah,
Send them an email to ask if they're planning another meeting.
yeah.
Hopefully it'll be a time David and I can attend.
Yeah.
Are we?
Anything else? Okay, so that's agenda items. So all we have left are signing forms and payroll. So if we could end the televised portion of the meeting, since all the fun, exciting stuff has
Night, Rick.
happened. Thank you. Good night, everyone.